Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, again, jeez.
Out of focus. I don't know, man.
Oh my God, I'm having trouble today. Okay, hold on a second. Yeah, it just now the controls have just disappeared from the screen.
Oh, the Logitune app?
No, in Restream.
Oh.
To be able to set it to 180, where like they're just gone. They're not there.
It's very bizarre.
It's just weird. Okay. Well, I don't know what to do.
Put your hand up to the camera for a second. And then pull it back.
There we go. All right. Just fix this before going live. All right. Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to Season 5 and episode number, I do not know at the moment because I got the Logitune thing open in front of me. So I can't check. To episode Season 5 and episode 661 of
Right.
Daily Beaver Morning Show. 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is June 3rd, 2025, and I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him. Hey, Mr. Beaver A. And as you can hear, with me, as usual, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. Big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Got a pretty basic show for you today. We're not going to deal with too many subjects because there was one big thing, that big meeting between the First and the Ministers and the Prime Minister. But before we go any further, Mr. Grizzly, how's your mental health doing today, sir? I see you're dressed in pink.
Yeah, mental health isn't too bad, actually. I did an ASMR last night and talked about the positive changes and the good news that I announced yesterday on the job front. So mental health is actually pretty good. I did have, it's strange though, things are really turning around for me, but I did have a melancholy moment throughout the day yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was just because I spent too many hours alone. I get my energy from other people. So, working from home is I'm fine with working from home. But a lot of the work that I do now is just this, right? And production wise, once the show ends, I'm doing production stuff. Well, production stuff is very solitary.
Yes.
So, working from home is fine for me if I can have a lot of meetings throughout my day because I get energy from everyone.
Right.
Even if we're just doing a FaceTime thing like this, it's virtual, but it's still, I can still see and converse with somebody, and that's where I get my energy. Well, yesterday I didn't spend any time with anyone but Lola. And don't get me wrong, she's wonderful, but
yes,
she's not very talkative. So unless she wants to be, and then
yes,
she wants out. But when I don't have the opportunity to spend time with actual, human beings, I find that my energy level gets really low and I get quite melancholy as a result. And then depression can creep in. So it's like, that's when it's time to like, oh, get up, go go to the coffee shop, talk to the person at the counter. Just that human interaction will make a difference. And it's, helped me realize more and more how a lot of seniors really struggle at a later point in their life after they lose a spouse or a partner.
Mhm.
They spend a lot of time alone, and it's
Yep.
why they, it's one of the reasons you'll see them at coffee shops or going back to work or something, just for that human contact, that human interaction.
Yep.
And of course, having a purpose in this world again. But it's with all of this technology we have, we tend to shut ourselves out and close ourselves off more than ever before. It's like, I mean, realistically, what do I need to leave my house for?
Mm.
Because everything can be delivered.
Right.
Other
Right.
than having to take Lola out for a walk, I wouldn't need to leave my house today. I can get everything delivered. So it's like, yeah, we need to touch grass a little more frequently. And so,
Mhm.
it interhumanary reaction. I don't know. I'm struggling with words this morning because I've only got one cup of coffee into me. But interacting with other people, there's what I was trying to say, really helps to lift your spirit. It really makes a difference. And I find humans more and more overrated. Yes, sometimes it can be a little too peoply. I get that. But I find, that the more you shut off and close off from each other, the more difficult it makes your day. Which is why, again, you'll see a lot of seniors. I'll be out for a walk with Lola, and they'll have a long conversation with me,
Mm.
and I'm fine with that because guess what? I need it too.
Yeah. Yep. I hear you. I was like that during COVID.
Yes. Yeah.
But, it's like, if you need to go do your groceries, go do them once a day. It's like, I need milk and I need tomatoes. I'm going for milk at 11 AM and I'm going for tomatoes at 5 because I just need to talk to people. It's just like,
Well,
oh.
and I remember a woman who was giving people shit about you should buy at least 2 weeks worth of groceries. And my response was, well, that's wonderful if you have the facilities for it. I said,
Mm.
I live alone in a one-bedroom apartment. I have a small apartment freezer that hardly ever works. It's, the freezer, it's like 2 cubic feet. How much am I going to freeze? She's like, well, you can buy canned goods. I don't eat canned food other than soup. I don't eat canned food
Right.
because it's not healthy. There's
Right.
too much. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that debate, but you know what and she's like, you're right. I'm sorry. I wasn't considering that. And I go, I know, I'm not mad. I get it. You're speaking about your circumstance, and I agree with your circumstance, but you need to consider that not everybody is in your
Yeah.
circumstance, so that you should add on to your statement for those who can. This is what you should do.
Right.
Also, especially if you have family members with you, you don't need to go out as much.
Right.
And I'm talking during the COVID when they asked
Right.
us to all stay home. But for those of us who were living alone,
Or with just one person.
you need to get out of the house because you're going to go squirrely.
Mm. Listen, I love my beaver sweetie.
Oh, I know.
But that whole thing was like, at one point was like, a couple months in, it's like, "Oh, do you remember? Oh, yeah, you were there." And then they, "Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
you were there." It was like you literally have nothing to talk about because 'cause you're there for everything. There's nothing new. It's like, ah. So, yeah, that's,
Yes, and it can get a little bit much sometimes, and
indeed.
it's the love for one another hasn't diminished or changed at all.
No, but you're just always there.
Yes, and
You
that
need
can
to
be a
go
bit
away for
much.
a bit.
Yeah,
It's like, or I need to go away for a bit.
well, that's
But,
what it
yeah,
boils down to.
no, but it's like I said, well, I mean, there's a lot of relationships that got closer, but there's a lot of relationships that didn't survive it either. It's like
Mm,
too much of a good thing. It's just
yeah,
as
for
bad as
sure.
not enough.
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. Before we get into stuff today, um, there is an event that happened. As you know, it's Pride Month, and
Mhm.
often with Pride Month also coincides Prude Month.
Yes.
So it's Happy Pride Month and happy. Why isn't there a white straight Pride
I mean,
Parade Month as well?
day of
Or
your life.
or the latest one now is the signs that say everyone's welcome, and people go, I'm not welcome here. It's like, yeah, you are.
It just says everyone.
You're welcome there. It's like if you choose not to go there because you can't stand the people inside, you're excluding yourself. So, well, would I be welcome there with my PPC or my MAGA hat on? It's like, why would you want to wear a PPC or MAGA hat
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
in the first place? It's like, it's like, okay, my freedom of expression. Okay, but freedom of expression doesn't come without consequences. You go
You do
someplace
know
where
that.
you wear something provocative, expect to be talked to. I mean, if I walk into a vegan restaurant eating munching on beef jerky, I'm going to be told.
Sir, you're not welcome here. Yeah. Kind of like the idiot who
Well,
showed up
not you're welcome.
at
Not you're
Buck
welcome here. It's
Festival
like
and
you're welcome here, but your beef jerky is
gotta
not.
go.
Please.
The idiot who showed up at a punk rock festival with a Nazi SS shirt on in Las Vegas.
You know,
The crowd was pretty unruly and were letting him know how they felt. Security had to step in and take him out. And I'm
yeah.
like, you show up at a punk rock concert, a punk rock festival with something like that on, you're asking for trouble.
I
You're
mean,
looking for it.
So it's like this. It's like, why wouldn't I be welcome into your space if I came in to provoke? Because you came in to provoke?
Exactly.
Rather than just enjoy our space. I don't need to go into a space where everybody wants to talk about color, genitals, I guess. It's like, we don't talk about color and genital stuff in our space because it's our space. We don't need to advocate for it. It's like, have you ever tried entering the space and just trying to be decent and see what happens?
Uh, it's like when they say, well, locker room talk. I go, look, I've been in a lot of locker rooms.
I never heard
We
that
don't
talk.
we don't talk about those things in the locker room. Why? Because, if I'm showering next to a guy, the last thing I want to talk about is something that could be arousing. That's not the best place to have that conversation next to a naked man. You're going to get punched.
Yes. Listen, again, I'm gay.
Yeah.
I like the D.
Yeah.
When I'm in a public shower, eyes up.
Yeah.
If somebody's talking to me in the shower room, I'm looking at you straight in the eye, not the eye, the eyes.
The eyes.
Not looking at Cyclops here. It's like,
Yeah.
I understand that your eyes are up here,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like, come on, man. It's like, I understand that men think about sex once every 6 seconds, but we also have some control. Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like whatever that thing that people talk about locker room talk, I've never heard it in any locker room I've been in.
No.
That's for sure. And I've been in a
No,
lot of
honest to
locker
good.
rooms.
Honest to
My
goodness.
God.
And when I was a young lad playing hockey, we talked about the rock video we saw on Friday night videos
Right.
or the hockey game the night before, or
Right.
that never entered the conversation.
Right. Or what we're doing after, or what we're
Yeah.
right. I mean, geez, God, people, come on, man. So yesterday, Mr. Our friend from Canadian History A or X, depending how
Mhm.
you want to call it,
Eggs.
Craig Beardsley had
There.
posted Baird, sorry. My God, I'm mixing everybody's names up. Kids and Cubs, I will preface all of this in the show today by saying that I am in a lot of pain at the moment. I have uh, I'm cramping and I have muscle spasms in my leg right now. So
No, that's
I'm
not
trying
fun.
to breathe through it. So I'm not actually the clearest focused. So I probably will make a certain number of mistakes today. So
Completely
I
fine.
beg your indulgence. But yes, Craig Baird had posted a thread about Delvin Vreend, who was, if you have been with us for a while, about 2 years ago, we had an interview with an activist from Edmonton named Murray Billett,
Mhm.
who was very much involved in the case. So I've been bringing that one back up, and it's circulating on our socials if people want to listen to it again. Um, but yes, Craig Beard basically said in 1991, Delvin Vrind, an openly gay man, was fired from his job as a laboratory coordinator and chemistry lab instructor in Alberta. He was told he was fired because he was gay. His court case helped pave the way to remove bans on same sex marriage across Canada. Basically, he fought this because there were no protections in law. And 2 years ago was the 25th anniversary of the decision, but there were no protections in law for you if you were gay.
Hmm.
You could be fired. You could lose your apartment. You could lose. There were
Oh,
just no protections whatsoever. Back in the day, you know, they used to, in the public service, if they suspected you were gay, they would strap you to a machine,
yeah. Hmm.
which they literally called the fruit machine, and try to measure uh, your body reaction to being shown stimulating pictures.
Yeah, it's
And
called the penile placysmograph graph. They
and
literally put a thing around your member and see what it does when they show you certain content.
so yeah, and of course the goal was to root out all gay people from the public service under the um, excuse, and for some of them, clearly at the time it was real, that you could be easily bribed or corrupted or blackmailed, or probably more blackmailed than anything else. Um, so we've come a long way since then. This guy
Mm.
from Alberta took this fight to court, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court, eventually. And the Supreme Court did rule at that point that sexual orientation should be read into the charter
Yes.
as a basis, as a protected grounds from discrimination. And it's really ironic because, we see in Alberta, Danielle Smith recently made the push to get some political advantage of herself by targeting trans kids. And it's like, we're sitting there, it's like, we know Albertans are good people because this case came from Alberta,
Correct.
right? So I don't know who she's representing. During this interview, this conversation with Mr. Billet, at one point, Mr. Grizzly was talking about um, volunteering with where he works at a pride parade, putting up a float and all that kind of stuff, and stating that, he enjoys pride and pride is wonderful, but he wished that they didn't need to exist anymore. Not because he doesn't want us to have them, but Mr. Grizzly, because
They're still necessary, and I wish they weren't.
exactly.
It's absolutely necessary. I long for the day when pride is no longer necessary. Keep having it because it's a good time. If you've never been to a pride, you're missing out.
Yeah.
Okay? It's a good time for everyone.
Everyone,
And look, I'm
all the colors of the rainbow, including straight.
and I'm kind of like you look up
You're
white
hopelessly
straight,
straight.
white
You
straight
cannot be
in the
saved.
dictionary. It'll have.
You cannot be saved.
I know
There's not enough Skittles in the world to make you taste the rainbow.
it's never going to happen. Look, I'll tell you, that's an attractive man, but I'm not attracted to him.
Mhm. There's a difference.
I can be very objective. Oh yeah, that's a good-looking man, but I'm not attracted to him.
Same way with
Look,
women. It's like,
I've
damn,
seen
she's
enough
hot,
naked men in my lifetime in the locker room.
but if you were gay by now, you'd know it.
Yeah. I'm just happy that women find this. Some women find this attractive. Thank goodness for that, because
It's not always pretty down there.
although I do have to go back to the Australian comedian who talked about his mate. He goes, "I don't like him, mate. I don't like him." Why not? Because they're all faking it, and the way they're just not manly enough. He goes, "Not manly enough. They fuck men." I look at you with your curvy little soft woman that you like. Gay, it's the new straight. Sorry if I offended anybody with that, but it's funny.
It's funny.
We showed that before. I can't show it
Yep.
now because our audience is growing and we'll get dinged with copyright. And we did at the time, and I removed it. But Jonathan, I can't remember his surname, but it's one of the funniest bits I've ever seen.
Yeah. So yesterday there was something in the news, and well, it's just like, this is why we fucking still need
Hmm.
gay pride. If you are a fan of either the shows Parks and Recreation or King of the Hill, you might be familiar with an actor whose name is Jonathan Ross.
Joss.
Sorry, I tell you, it's going to happen today. Jonathan Joss. I'm not sure. I think we have an image of him specifically. And if you watch King of the Hill, he plays the character John Redcorn on that one. And yeah, Yesterday, news came out that he had been fatally shot. And it is highly suspected that it is a homophobic incident, at least according to his husband. It is. Um, Now, Mr. Joss and his partner, or his husband, because they were just married on Valentine's Day, um, their house burned down at some point. Um, and they were
Suspected arson.
suspected arson. And they were there and they were looking at it. And when they were there, they saw something that triggered them emotionally.
Mhm.
And I believe it was uh, the skull of their dog
Yeah, that would trigger
and its
me.
harness that were placed in such a way that they absolutely would see it.
Okay.
Um, and there had been threats many times against them. And they had reported these threats. And according to them, nothing was done. So, according to Tristan Kern de Gonzalez, his Jonathan Joss's husband, quote, "My husband Jonathan Joss and I were involved in a shooting while checking the mail at the site of our former home. That home was burned down after over 2 years of threats from people in the area who repeatedly told us they would set it on fire. We reported these threats to law enforcement multiple times and nothing was done. Throughout that time, we were harassed regularly by individuals who made it clear they did not accept our relationship. Much of the harassment was openly homophobic. When we returned to the site to check our mail, we discovered the skull of one of our dogs and its harness placed in clear view. This caused us both severe emotional distress. We began yelling and crying in response to the pain of what we saw. While we were doing this, a man approached us. He started yelling violent homophobic slurs at us. He then raised a gun from his lap and fired. Jonathan and I had no weapons. We were not threatening anyone. We were grieving. We were standing side by side. Why the man fired? When the man fired, Jonathan pushed me out of the way. He saved my life. Jonathan is my husband. He gave me more love in our time together than most people ever get. We were newlyweds. We picked Valentine's Day. We were in the process of looking for a trailer and planning our future. He was murdered by someone who could not stand the sight of two men loving each other."
And that's why pride is still necessary.
And
Yeah.
as you know, Kids and Cubs, I made reference to it the other day, but someone the other day, in an effort to get me to denounce my government or take a position on what's going on in Gaza, well,
Mhm.
not take a position, right, adopt their position on what's going on in Gaza, sent me uh, news of the first gay imam ever
Oh.
being shot in South Africa
Oh.
recently. Said, "Look, they do this. You need to hate them too." Right? And I talked about this on the other show. It's like, yeah, well, I remember after September 11th, people showing me images allegedly of people from Daesh throwing us off roofs, and I wasn't more moved to hate as a result of that either. Um, but yeah, we are still being targeted, and not just us, but our brothers and sisters in the trans community, even more so.
Yes.
Right?
And that's what, 1% of the population? It's not even 1% of the population.
I'm not sure what the percentage is, but it isn't a lot.
No, I mean the Canadian population,
Oh,
not
Canadian,
the
yeah.
rainbow.
I don't.
Yeah.
So I've heard like up to 1.4, but I've heard 0.4. So I mean, whatever it is, and
Well,
those are only those who those are only those who will self-identify on a
a
census,
lot of
right?
people won't
A lot
for
of people won't.
good reason.
Yeah. So yeah, it's why we need pride.
Mm.
Like I said, yes, I understand the whole. Oh my God, it's gone too corporate. It's gone to all that kind of stuff. I get that.
Mhm.
because I was there when Pride wasn't as corporate.
No,
Yeah,
definitely not.
36 years ago was my first Pride. It was literally walking down Bank Street, and then we were on a little patch of lawn. We had a little barbecue and cake, and that's all
That
it
was
was.
it, yeah.
And almost nobody showed up to watch it. So, um,
S Something that occurs, I just wanna interject here for a second just to let you know that, I've been to Pride with you and your partner,
mhm,
and we've had a blast,
mhm.
and something that happens to me every Pride is I usually get hit on by some greasy old man, and it's not comfortable.
Not only greasy old men.
Well, no,
I've seen you
you're
been hit on by, like,
some
some cute
attractive
young things too.
yes, true.
Mhm.
When a greasy old man hits on you, it's not it's very off-putting and very uncomfortable, and that just makes me come to realize how every woman on planet Earth feels every fucking day of her life,
Mm,
because it happens every day of a woman's life,
mm,
sometimes multiple times,
mm.
and that's how women feel. So if you don't like feeling that way, maybe don't treat other people that way.
Yeah. So, yeah, just, you know, I would rather have it too corporate
Mhm.
and people speaking for us than the opposite.
Yes.
So,
You have to see the positive side of the corporate takeover, if you will. The message is being spread, you
yeah,
know?
it's like, and, all those places are telling you, "You can come and work here and you'll be okay,"
Mhm.
right? As well, which is a nice thing.
Well, that's the other
And
thing,
it
yeah.
and it's the same thing with the he and him, right? This is the or if you're putting your pronouns up, right, and you get people, well, pronouns, like, you should be dismissed as a person, and everything that you say and all your thoughts and ideas and feelings should just be dismissed because you put your pronouns. It's like your pronouns are basically telling people you're safe with me,
Yes.
right?
Encountered
That's
somebody
literally all that
yesterday
is.
I encountered somebody yesterday talking about the current government and how their focus this person's focus was, "We need to end DEI, we need to have meritocracy, we need to have blah, blah, blah."
We can
And
have both.
my first thought was, do you do you know it's the 21st century? Because those are 20th century ideas. They don't translate well. The world has moved on from those. Meritocracy is a great idea, but DEI is also very important. And people
And
get bent out of shape out of that. And you know who the people who get bent out of shape from that are? People who look like me. I'm like, why are you being threatened? Is it because somebody somewhere may be just as qualified as you and maybe get presented an opportunity that was just merely handed to you on a silver platter? I'm just asking the question.
mhm,
I decided not to interact with this person because it just wasn't worth my time. But it makes you think, like, there are people out there who refuse to grow, refuse to change, and that's what they refuse to grow and or change. The
yeah,
world has moved on. You're being left behind, but you wanna sit back and relax and live in your comfortable little bubble, that's fine. That's fine, but you're gonna find yourself awful lonely at some point in time in the future.
yeah, yeah. And it's not because everybody's pushed you away, but because you've excluded yourself, right? So, yeah, uh, the the thing with meritocracy and DEI is in a country like Canada that's pluralistic, there's enough of us, right? We're minority groups, but within these minority groups, there's enough of us that you can get DEI and merit,
Mhm. Yes.
right?
Yes.
Like, we're still doing this with the cabinet, right? Oh my God, I can't believe they're doing equal men, equal women. It's like there are more women in the country, and more of them are highly educated.
Yes.
Because if we were doing meritocracy the way that you guys are claiming for it, like, you'd be in the minority
I believe
by a
so.
long shot. It would be an old girls club, not an old boys club these days. So it's like there are enough women now who are educated. There are enough black people who are educated and accomplished, enough indigenous people who are educated and accomplished, enough people who are different who are living with a disability who are accomplished
Mhm.
because and have there are very many jobs, right? Because I'm not expecting them to be on a construction site drilling, right? But there are many jobs, right?
Yes.
It's like you can be an incredible accountant translator if you are using a wheelchair,
Hmm.
right? None of that affects your mind, right? So there's enough of all of us that you can have DEI and merit.
Oh, yes.
Like the automatic assumption because someone is different that they did not get there by merit in 2025 in Canada in particular, one of the most pluralistic nations on the planet, is just dumb. It's just dumb. All right? You can have both. But yes, there is still violence. There are still people that want us not to exist. Still in 2025, waking up every morning as a gay person
Hmm.
isn't subversive act.
Well,
It still is. Even after more than 25 years of the Delrondon decision, even after 20 years of same-sex marriage, or just marriage now being a
just
thing,
marriage. Yeah, just marriage.
equal marriage, it's still a subversive act for some.
Well, there's people who say, well, you shouldn't allow the gay marriage. I remember when they first said, okay, we're going to have same sex marriage. It's going to be illegal. What's next? They're going to marry horses? Yes, because that's exactly where it leads to.
Yeah. My question was like, so are you talking about marrying horses to each other?
Or you're going to marry
Are
the
they going to
horse.
marry horses? What? So, right. When you say marry horses, I'm hearing marrying two horses to each other, not a person and a horse.
Well, no, this is where some of these people's minds went. I'm like,
I know.
you might need to see a counselor because if you're thinking that,
It's like, my God, it's like, that's the thing. It's like homosexual. It's still within the same species, you
yes,
dumbasses.
we're not looking after animals.
It's like, my God. Oh, man. Jeez. But yeah. So anyway, yeah, I saw that yesterday and immediately it was just, and now there's more details coming out soon. Coming out, it seems that Mr. Joss might have been having other issues here and there. There was talk that he seemed to be somewhat territorial about his space and, would often yell at people and things like that. So there's other accounts, whatnot. But his husband, their eyewitness, says that the person who raised the gun, you know, launched into homophobic slurs before doing it. So there's a lot of articles out there, looking at his past and recent past and stuff like that, and mental health issues and whatever that may or may not have been there. And maybe he said, well, maybe he was just like belligerent and mouthing off too much to his neighbors, and one had too much, and it has nothing to do with him. Well, according to his husband, the guy launched out into homophobic slurs before he pulled the trigger.
Yeah.
So, so unless we have another Jussie Smollett thing going on, where
Sounds
it's not true, um, you know, we should have no reason to doubt at this moment, right? So at this moment, it does. Yes, the investigation still has to happen, and whatnot, but it does look, in fact, like indeed homophobic shooting.
A hate crime. Well,
So,
murder is a crime, but this was a hate motivated murder.
yeah.
So, although I think most murder is hate motivated, to be honest, but this was hate because of somebody's
Mhm,
sexual identity.
mhm. Yep. So, yeah. So uh, every now and then, Pulse nightclub shooting, this type of stuff, you get a reminder. You get a reminder that for all the freedoms and all the progress that we've made, we're still not safe 100% of the time.
Mm.
I mean, nobody's safe 100% of the time in that sense, right? As a person, you can just be at the wrong place at the wrong time when a crime happens. But in terms of you are who you are, and there are things about you that you can't change, and that's the reason for which you get taken out, we're still not safe.
No.
So, if you do have the ability and the inclination, do support your local pride event um, by just your presence. Just your presence. All you have to do is show up, right? And have a good time. Show up and have a good time. That's
Enjoy
all you need to
yourself.
do. That's all you need to
Enjoy
do.
yourself.
But
You'll
yeah,
have a good time. Trust me.
we can
It's
use the
always
support.
fun. Yeah.
We can still use the support.
You got to remember one of the key things about Pride is to celebrate and be joyful. To be
Okay.
joyful, because it's the safe space. So you can go out and get your freak on,
Yeah.
and nobody is going to judge you for it.
Well,
Most people won't even pay attention to you for it.
yes. It's like, well, we can't be that. We're gay. We're very judgy. We just keep it on the inside.
It's a super Canadian thing too, by the way.
Oh my God, you just made me think of that. If there is nobody no more passive aggressive and judgy than a Canadian, oh my God, a gay Canadian?
Yeah, just ramp it up another couple of notches. That's exactly where I was going with it.
Oh my God. Oh my God, yes, that's so me. Because every now and then I'm sitting there, it's like, and I'm looking, totally judging you. Eyes going up and down like a searchlight. It's like, oh man. It's like, I'm not judging you, but I'm totally judging you.
Well, I like this from Christian. He says,
Yep.
I like how Alexis on Fire says it at their shows, if you are a homophobe, this is not a safe space for you. If you're not familiar with Alexis on Fire, let's just say their music is really frickin' hardcore. It is
Mhm.
not for the faint of heart.
Mhm.
If you like loud, fast, angry, punky, metally, a combination of the two, that's Alexis on Fire. Yeah, they rock out hard.
Hard.
And you can ask our good buddy Super Kyle, who was crowd surfed at their shows. And one show, maybe two shows, I can't remember now. They brought him up on stage, and he sat there on stage to enjoy the show and see the audience and cheer everybody on. Yeah, yeah.
Nice, nice, nice.
I need
All
a little
right.
coffee. I'll be right back.
Okay. Um, now that we got through the not great portion of the show, the stuff that absolutely needed to be said. Um, Yesterday, big meeting between the prime minister and the first ministers, and if you watched the closing press conference, and we're going to look at it today, if you haven't here, um, you were probably very surprised because it was pretty much a loving. Interestingly enough. Of course, the big question was not going to be about will the prime minister be able to perform, but whether or not Danielle Smith specifically would try to blow the whole thing up somehow. Um, Little Miss Independent um, is proving to be rather high maintenance these days, and Danielle did not require one but two meetings. So it seems that there was a first meeting on the day before, so I guess it would have been a Sunday, in which, or yeah, I guess it would have to be Sunday because this one started in the morning, where there are some images and you see Prime Minister Carney on one side of the table with two people, and her on the other side of the two people table with two people, almost as if they were like two national governments negotiating one with another, um, which is kind of weird. But you know what? I can see, I can see Prime Minister Carney wanting to do the extra work to try to bring her on board, um, and invest early on in the relationship to do that. Especially if she has her back up and she's assuming that absolutely everything is going to be anti-Alberta and for the sole cause of um, disrupting Alberta. That maybe this is the type of thing for which you would want to invest a little extra time at the beginning to try to make it clear that you're not him. That might be something you'd want to do. And right here, I will show you the image here, right? So
Mhm.
it wasn't enough for Danielle Smith to come to the meeting of all the premiers. She needed her own as well. So she
Right.
got two
She has
meetings,
to feel special, right?
super high maintenance relationship,
Mhm.
right? So just making it clear. Now, there was some rumors that she wouldn't be there at that meeting. And that was interesting because then it sort of put this meeting in the context. Oh, okay. He made an effort to go out and have a pre-meeting with her because she had engagements in Washington. But it seems that the engagements in Washington were probably later in the evening. So she was indeed there at that meeting uh, with everybody else. Um, Now, in the previous day's meeting, um, it says here, according to CTV, this is Michael Franklin who wrote this here. The Prime Minister is pleased with the outcome of the meetings he had with Alberta Premier Danielle Smith on Sunday. Mark Carney wrote on social media that his meeting with Smith was, quote, constructive and made progress on the goal of reaching a, quote, united Canadian economy. Quote, including getting big things built and major infrastructure projects off the ground in Alberta and across Canada, he said, along with posting a picture at the meeting in Saskatoon. The Prime Minister did not share any details about the nature of those projects. Smith wrote that she provided Carney, quote, with a list of reasonable changes he must make to prove he wants to unite Canada. Quote, Alberta is looking forward to seeing rapid and tangible progress on these reforms following First Minister's meeting this week, she wrote. Now, again, you know how I feel about her.
Mhm.
Yes. And again, you will notice the framing. She provided Carney with a list of reasonable changes because she unilaterally, all alone, gets to decide what is reasonable. Right? And said reasonable changes he must make to prove he wants to unite Canada because the job of repairing this relationship that she toxifies daily is 100% his. It's 100% up to Canada to make all the moves. This is the frame.
Yeah.
And I'm getting a little sick and tired of that. I believe Little Miss Independent deserves to be hip checked into the boards, but Mark Carney wants his efforts to be successful. So clearly he is coddling her,
Well, clearly.
right? Try to smooth things over because the last thing Mark Carney wants is to come out of that first meeting and have somebody yelling and screaming. Now, yesterday we made the point, this, and Ryan Jesperson made the point that she has no vested interest whatsoever in having coming out of this meeting saying anything praiseworthy because she needs the fight more than she needs the solution. She's saving her ass. She needs the fight more than she needs the pipeline.
Oh, yes.
Personally, Alberta needs the pipeline more than they need the fight, but she needs the fight more than she needs the pipeline. So when you see what happens at this meeting, you might be surprised. There's also images from the meeting going on and where you see everybody around the table and everybody seems content except for Danielle Smith, who has a sourpuss, a perpetual sourpuss at the meeting. Um, so we're wondering, gee, how did this go? Because we just got this news report that things went well. Um, so they had the meeting, and there was a pre-meeting sort of conference. So I guess because they were all there the night before or something like that, maybe they had the opportunity to chat and socialize a little bit before the meeting the following day. The opening press conference, which had Scott Moe and I think the Prime Minister, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it was just them 2 in the opening. I can't remember off the top of my head because Doug Ford is also um, Scott Moe gets to speak first because he's hosting. It's hosting in Saskatchewan. Then usually the Prime Minister gets to speak second because Doug Ford is the president of the Council of the Federation.
Right.
It's a rotating one. He usually gets to speak. So I don't remember off the top of my head if he spoke at the opening one. But you were listening to it and it seems, wow, it's like Scott Moe and Mark Carney seem to get along. And I've also noticed that Scott Moe, who is usually the baby brother, who whenever Danielle Smith says something, he shows up 2 days later and says, "Me too," hasn't been saying "me too" so much on the
Interesting.
sovereignty thing, right? They both have a sovereignty thing. They both came in the beginning of the new terms with the sovereignty thing, right? One
Right.
of the first thing Danielle Smith did was the Sovereignty Act thing, and Scott Moe was sort of in that, "Yeah, yes, too," like this, but, since she's been pushing the separation way more, Scott Moe has just been like, not saying too much and seemingly getting along. So I don't know if there is a bit of a, um some, distance, some light between Scott Moe and Danielle Smith, where Scott Moe is, happy to talk about sovereignty now and then, every now and then, to sort of, like, gain a couple of points here and there on something, but never really is going to go forward with it, whereas, she's paving the way to make it way easy for it to happen, a separation referendum. So that might have been the threat or the specter of it may have been enough. Scott Moe may have been down with that, but actually taking the step to make it happen, not so much. It seems. Now, of course, between Alberta and Saskatchewan, um, Alberta believes because it is a larger economy and has so much oil and all that kind of stuff and more people that it could make a go of it if it went alone. I'm not sure Saskatchewan necessarily has the same amount of people and resources and uh, for that to actually be a viable concept,
Mm.
right? In terms of Quebec separation, Quebec's the second largest province, right? Very cosmopolitan, access to tidewater and all that kind of stuff. Quebec probably and already has some international relationships with other French language countries. Quebec probably could make a go of it and be easily recognized on the international scene if it would. Alberta, not, no, I'm not sure.
No, I don't think that's going to work.
Saskatchewan, maybe even less, right? So there's less motivation, there's less in it. You would be taken far less seriously as a premier of Saskatchewan saying we're going to be independent than a premier of Alberta
Oh, yes.
would be in this case. So I have noticed that there's been a little, Scott Moe is sort of like while she's doing her thing, it's like, please, girl, keep it down. So it's looking promising going into this meeting, right? Danielle Smith had another meeting with Mark Carney previously that we reported on that seemed to be somewhat promising, even though she was still yelling and making demands and all that type of stuff. But after this meeting, right, it was literally just, well, I provided Carney with a list of reasonable changes he must make if he wants to prove he wants to unite Canada, but not much more. Looking forward to seeing rapid and tangible progress on these reforms. Alberta is looking forward. Okay, you know what? We'll take that. Carney, as you know, also had met with oil and gas executives in Calgary on Sunday morning, probably before meeting with her. So he probably had some stuff from that meeting to bring to her. She probably got some calls from executives in that meeting say, hey, you know what? He's saying things that are pretty reasonable, right? So during those meetings, he pushed for partnerships in a divided and dangerous world. Quote, we will do everything we can at the federal government level to support those partnerships, Carney said. So Carney meets with meets with the big city mayors, meets with the oil executives, has a special meeting with Danielle, opening press conference, and there doesn't seem to be anything bad or toxic or inflammatory coming out of any of these meetings.
Which is unexpected and a surprise.
Yeah. So if you were going into that first ministers meeting as a citizen, thinking, maybe there's some cause for optimism, Skeptically, yes, because she could turn on a dime. But yeah, maybe, right? There could be something. Yes, Wolvenhart, absolutely. First Nation Land Treaty, the province doesn't have the resources. We know it's practically unfeasible. Like
Mhm.
in terms of Canadian law, it's unfeasible. But I mean, on the international stage, should it have gone? Alberta wouldn't be more likely to get recognition than Saskatchewan, but way less likely to get recognition from Quebec,
Mhm.
right? Because the fact that the portion of the Northwest Territory out of which Alberta was carved happens to sit where dinosaurs once roamed and there are fossil fuels does not make it a distinct society.
You know,
Yes. And Danielle Smith had mused about that like this. Well, we want to be considered a distinct society like Quebec, not because of our culture, but because of our resources. Well, resources don't make you distinct because everybody would be distinct. The fish in Newfoundland, Labrador, the wheat, Saskatchewan,
Congratulations, you were born on a place that had a lot of dinosaurs.
that does not make you distinct, right?
Think it does. It just shows you how absurd she is as a human being.
Yeah, I know. But again, if your main interest is not the solution, it's the fight, well, of course, all your positions are going to be unreasonable. Right? Of course, you're gonna show up. It's like, "You absolutely must guarantee us access to tidewater from the north, the east, and the west."
No, we don't.
No, we don't, actually, and other people than the federal government have stuff to say about that.
Yes.
Anything that's gonna pass on anybody else's territory,
They get to
provincial
talk
or
about
First Nation, they get to talk,
it. They get a voice. Hey, look, you might not even like it,
and they get to say no.
but that's their right.
It's their house. They get to decide what comes into their house.
Well, we heard what Michel Blanchet said about a pipeline to the province of Quebec. He's like, let me see if I get this
Michel
correct.
Blanchet?
Uh,
No, Yves-François Blanchet, you mean.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
let me see if I get this correct. You want us to help finance the building of a pipeline that goes through our province, but we're not going to get any of the profits from it. We have to pay for the maintenance and the cleanup, but we're not going to get any of the profits
Yeah.
from it. Yeah, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah. It's a good point. If you're Quebec, so hey, listen, like we've got hydro. We've
It's
already
legit.
decarbonized.
Yeah.
I guess we're not getting any profits from this and all the extra disaster mitigation and then the abandoned oil wells that then all of a sudden we cut a $1 billion check. This and then all the subsidies that will, $11 billion or $8 billion, depending on how you count of subsidies that go over here that we count. That's all money that comes out of our pocket. What benefit do we get? We don't even get to buy it at a lower price.
And then, of course, they go, well, we give you transfer payments. No.
No, you don't.
Everybody in the country puts money into the same tax base, and then that money gets distributed to those who need it.
Yes, and everybody gets taxed at the same rate. There's not a special tax rate for Alberta
It's
just because you're on oil.
it's not an equalization payment, it's a transfer payment, and it's done so from the federal level, and you need to remember they go, "Yeah, well, we generate the most revenue." No, you don't. You happen to have a lot of people who earn a lot of money, so they pay more in taxes. But you're like Ontario is almost 4 times the population.
Hmm. Now, oil
Yeah.
and gas specifically, because when it's at a high price
Mhm.
like this,
Very
yeah, it
profitable.
does make a lot of money, very profitable. Yes, it contributes a lot. Yes, and especially now that they're doing this thing, well, if we divide it on a per capita basis, oh god, here we go again.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you know what? If I was selling lithium that sells at over like $10,000 a pound or whatever like this, and I sold X number, yeah, I would like to divide my number by a per capita too, right? But it's one resources like con,
At
right?
this exact moment in time, Western Canadian Select is currently selling at $50.17 per barrel, which means that it's still profitable. If it dips below 40, they're in deep trouble.
Mhm. But still, any dollar below $68 US
Mhm.
like represents a $750 million hole in her
Correct.
budget because it's because with Alberta, it's not just break even on the price of oil, but because they fund so many core services from oil royalties rather than from general revenues, because they refuse to charge a provincial sales tax, yes, which no government should do, by the way. Especially if you're a provincial government, your two core constitutional mandates are health and education. Those two things should not be funded from resource royalties. They should be from your core budget.
Correct.
Those are things you need to make sure are there and
Well,
are
this is why they
consistent.
need a PST. And I know you don't
Yeah.
like to hear it, but guess what? I've noticed that things in Alberta are quite a bit more expensive than they are in Ontario. And I pay HST on everything. So why is that?
Exactly.
Why are simple things like a cup of coffee, a can of beer, lunch at a diner more expensive in Alberta than they are in Ontario? I'd like to know that because, oh, and you don't have PST. Every time I spend $1 somewhere, 13% of that is taxed. It's HST, it's the GST and PST, the harmonized sales tax, the combined. So 13% of every dollar I spend it goes towards tax.
Yeah.
You could really fix a lot of problems in Alberta, propping up healthcare for one, if they decided to implement a 4% PST.
Right.
Just 4%.
And then take it all and put it into the sovereign wealth fund if you need to.
There would be a good idea. Get that wealth fund going again.
Right. And had they done that, had they just charged even a 3% PST all those years and take that money and salt it away, Alberta would be in such a different position. Danielle Smith would be able to show up at that table and say, like, if she wanted to,
Mm-hmm.
yes, okay, well, if you will allow it to put it on your territory, boom, I got the money for it. Build it.
Yes. But they stopped contributing to that decades
Right.
ago.
So the meeting happens. We don't know what happens inside the meeting because there's no cameras there. And then they emerge and they have the closing press conference. And Scott Moe, again, who gets to speak first because he's hosting the meeting, basically talks for a few minutes and says, that's a very, very good meeting. And I'm thinking, okay, Scott Moe thinks it's a good meeting. This is pretty good. Let's see what else they have to say. So, Mr. Grizzly, if you have the video queued.
I do indeed, sir.
All right. So we won't show you Mr. Moe at the beginning saying very good meeting because he talks later. It's just sort of the introduction, welcome into everything. So he throws it to Prime Minister Carney, and Mr. Carney says something in this first clip about the overall tone of the meeting that caught my ear. He gives it 3 qualifiers that were sort of like, oh.
All right, I'll just hand to our host, Premier Moe.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister, and thank you to Minister Freeland, Minister LeBlanc, and Minister Hodgson for joining us here today in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And thank you to each of my colleagues, premiers from across Canada, who, as I say, collectively, we represent all Canadians as well, like the Prime Minister.
Focused on building the amend of.
What happened?
We're also focused on building building projects, right. And that took up much of.
What?
That's not right, Mr. Grizzly.
That was the clip. You said start at 2:40. Or you want to start at the beginning?
Well, yeah, let's do that now. we weren't going to, but yeah.
I started at the beginning and realized I was at the wrong place, so I jumped ahead to the correct.
Oh, that's what happened. Okay, because I just saw a big skip. Sorry.
Yeah, because I went to the correct timing.
Sorry. Okay.
Just give me a second here and I'll restart it. At the correct spot. I had it at the wrong spot. That was my bad. Hang on. Come on. That says 2:40, but we're missing everything that he's saying.
First Minister's meeting in Saskatoon today.
Great. Thank you very much, Premier Moe. Thanks for your hospitality to the people of Saskatchewan, for welcoming the Premier's federal ministers, myself here, particularly as we spoke during the day yesterday and before, at a very difficult time as fires rage across the northern prairies. The response is a massive undertaking. Credit to your government, that of Premier Canoe, Premier Smith, the volunteers, first responders, the support from the Canadian Forces and the Canadian government across the board. I also want to thank the premiers for their support, their consistent, unwavering, constructive support in our response to the unjustified and unlawful tariffs that the U.S. is still imposing on Canada. We are fighting to get the best deal for Canada. That work is ongoing. Minister LeBlanc will be headed to Washington this evening to continue negotiations. En même temps, nous travaillons également au développement de nouveaux partenariats commerciaux. Le Canada a ce que le monde veut et les valeurs auxquelles les autres aspirent. Notre objectif principal est clair, de bâtir une seule économie canadienne au lieu de 13 et d'abattre les barrières qui freinent le commerce interne et la mobilité de la main-d'œuvre. We're also focused on building nation-building projects, and that took up much of our discussion today. I outlined during the meetings the central contribution of the federal government to this mission, first and foremost to eliminate all remaining federal barriers to internal trade and labour mobility, and to enable the federal government, working with the provinces, the territories, Indigenous peoples, to identify and expedite nation-building projects. To be deemed in the national interest, those projects should, amongst others, strengthen the Canadian economy, strengthen our autonomy, our resilience, and our security, provide undeniable benefits to Canada, have a high likelihood of successful execution, be a high priority for Indigenous leaders, and to drive Canada's clean growth potential. Under a new process, once a project is designated as being in the country's national interest, a new federal major project office will bring together all relevant federal departments to provide a single set of conditions that must be met for those projects to advance. And the commitment is to proceed with the approval process for a maximum of 2 years under a new streamlined process that prioritizes federal resources to these most important projects. We will also work towards one project, one review, including through new cooperation agreements with the provinces. The point is to build the certainty, the stability, and the ambition that builders need to catalyze enormous investment to make Canada into an energy superpower and to build the strongest economy in the G7. We had wide-ranging discussions. There was a lot of preparation for this meeting. We discussed a wide range of potential nation-building projects, including, and this is far from exhaustive, the Western and Arctic corridor, which, amongst other things, connects energy, critical minerals, and trade infrastructure, the Eastern Energy Partnership, critical minerals pathways, which include a range of critical mineral projects that premiers can speak to, the next stage of nuclear from uranium to SMRs to large-scale nuclear, and a series of infrastructure investments for export diversification from ports to rails to last-mile roads. All First Ministers agreed that Indigenous partnerships and equity will be central to success. And upcoming federal legislation will mandate both meaningful consultation with Indigenous peoples, both during the process of determining which projects are in the national interest and developing the conditions for each project. The goal here is to get projects built faster so we can create more high-paying careers and greater prosperity for all Canadians.
All right. So, it seems dry and all that kind of stuff, and it is. But the key words in that are that he has consistent, unwavering, and constructive support from the premiers. And he didn't say all premiers except Danielle, but all the premiers. So I'm sitting there and it's like, okay, Scott Moe says it's a very good meeting. Carney, it's like consistent, unwavering, and constructive support. Okay. Interesting in there too. Tells you specifically, because a lot of people have been asking the question, what does deemed in the national interest actually mean? Right? And he gives an example of those. He gives all the criteria of what that is, and then gives an idea of certain projects that are kind of like that. And of course, makes the point of speaking about Indigenous partnership and equity. Partnership and equity. So it seems dry, but there's a lot of content in there.
Well,
That's very, very key to what needs to happen next.
Mark Carney is not a flashy guy. He's just not who he is. It's not in his nature. It's not who he is. But it doesn't matter, because if you pay attention to what he says, and there are a lot of people who are doing that, they recognize this is the right man for the job at this time.
Yep. So Scott Moe likes it. Mark Carney is talking about consistent, unwavering, and constructive support. Let's see what Doug Ford has to say.
Nothing's carved in stone at this meeting. There was great discussions, because I know the first question is going to be, what are the exact projects? I have all the confidence in the world. The Prime Minister and his team are going to bring back the list. They're going to sit down. They're going to discuss it to build these large national infrastructure projects from coast to coast to coast. The other area that we spoke about was bail reform. It's absolutely critical we keep our communities safe. It's each and every one of our jobs to protect communities, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to make sure the real bad guys, these violent criminals, go to jail. And people may have a drug addiction, we're going to support them. I'm not worried about them committing crimes as much as I am the criminals that are coming in from all over the country, all over the world, flying in and causing chaos in neighborhoods. And I'll speak just about Ontario on that issue there. But again, Prime Minister, I want to thank you. Working collaboratively and cooperating with all the premiers. I'm very, very confident. I want to tell the people of Canada, and in my case, the people of Ontario, there's hope. We're going to look at how we're going to move forward and implement as quickly as possible prosperity in our province and across the country. Again, I want
to Doug Ford, happy?
Well, he did say it was the best First Minister's meeting in 10 years. He's been the Premier for 7. This man is not very good with numbers.
No.
I think he only understands grams.
Yes. Oh. Ooh. Ouch. Harsh but fair. But again, Doug Ford, enthusiastic. Also, the first instance of Doug Ford sticking it to Pierre Poilievre, again, by mentioning the crime issue, right? Conservatives ran really hard on that. And if you remember, in his acceptance speech that Mark Carney talked about the people who voted for him, and he also realized that there was 8 million people that did not vote for him who were interested and very concerned about crime and affordability, and that he would be addressing that too. So even though this is meeting specifically, yes, about big projects and where we're going economically, they did take some time to talk about crime and stuff. And when the Prime Minister met with the big city mayors, he had also talked about that. So the Liberals strategically, and this Prime Minister, are slowly trying to nibble away at turf that the Conservatives think, federal Conservatives think is theirs. And it seems that Doug Ford is very, 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 very happy to help them do that here. So interesting situation here. Yeah, I heard Mr. Grizzly, you got the construction thing going on, eh?
Yeah, once again.
It
makes trying to narrate books or create any sort of content very difficult. I mean, yes, I'm in a booth, and it's designed to reduce reflections and echoes and sound, but it's not soundproof. To make a soundproof booth, I'd need $1 million and build an anechoic chamber. And sorry, I don't have that kind of money. Number one, and number two, it's just not practical. And number three, this is just life, man. Life in a rent-controlled building.
So, Scott Moe's happy. The Prime Minister thinks that things have been constructive. Doug Ford thinks it's the best meeting in 7, 10, depending years. And let's also remind ourselves that while the meetings maybe with Prime Minister Trudeau didn't go very well, when we had Prime Minister Stephen Harper, there were no meetings.
Yeah, take that with a grain of salt.
It's like he was sitting there, goes, well, these Fed Prov territorial meetings are just like the Prime Minister showing up to be head waiter to the provinces, and I'm not interested in that, so I'm just going to meet with everybody one on one and make all these side deals. Because there were very few first ministers with prime minister meetings during the Harper era. Like the
Because
concept almost disappeared.
he wants to be dictator.
Mhm. So here we
That's
got
my
a
opinion.
Yeah.
And I'm entitled to it.
Yeah, but here we have a prime minister that seems to be wanting to do government by cabinet for real, and so far is showing up to do media interviews. He was on Power Politics with David Cochrane today, and seems to be showing up at Fed Prov territorial meetings, not with "How may I serve you?" but "How can we work together?" What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? Okay, so you need this. You like this, but you don't want them to have that because of this, and you don't want that. But what if we did this? So you get a little bit if you want, you get a little bit of what you want, you get a little bit of what you want. Would this work? Oh, well, so maybe it's his boardroom experience. Like this, he does have a good capacity to listen to what everybody says and then synthesize it and then move forward. We've seen that before in his what we've seen from him going on in public before. So maybe that's what's going on. We still don't know what's ever going on, but it's like, oh my God, everybody seems to, well, at least this seems to be a very positive press conference. I remember the last time, I think it was when Justin Trudeau met with them, Danielle Smith wouldn't sign the communique. She's actually present there at the meeting. And the first 3 people to speak have positive things to say.
Yeah,
Could it be that it was actually a positive meeting? Or are the 3 people with the most to lose from this meeting not going well, the host, the prime minister, and the head of the council, just putting a good spin on it,
Mhm.
right? Well, you gotta listen to the rest of the press conference to figure that out.
Well, and
See
you'll
what
be
happens.
happy to share that because I have to go.
Oh,
It's
okay.
8:30. Yeah, I gotta go. And as we noted yesterday that, I still don't know what my, schedule will be like in the near future once I start my new job. I might be able to do 30 minutes in the morning, 7 to 7:30. So we'll have to really get on the 7 o'clock start. I think that's what's going to be the case. I can jump in for 30 minutes and then have to go because I'm going to have a commute where the commute is to. I don't know yet, but I'm just prepping everybody to let everybody know that there will be changes coming, but they're good. They're going to be good changes. They're going to be good changes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'll be able to
And,
follow up and do stuff later on in the day as well as what I'm thinking, and you tell me how you feel about this, sir. As stories develop throughout the day, if they're really important, we can just jump on and address them right away.
yeah, we
And do
could do
like
that.
the shorts, not like a full program, like a 15 minutes or something.
Yeah, we could do some of those too, and we could probably do something where we record something in the evening, and then I could include it in the morning show so that
Mhm.
you're more present.
Yeah, yeah. No,
So,
that sounds good.
so we can find stuff. Don't worry.
Yeah. All right.
You'll still get your dose of grizzly, kids and cubs. Don't worry about that.
Don't worry, your grizzly's not going anywhere. He's just going to be working a little bit more.
Yes.
I do have to go though,
Okay.
and I am thankful and grateful for each and every one of you for joining us Monday to Friday, and when you are able to jump into my 9 p.m. ASMR on Mondays, I think I will. I think I'll be able to start doing that every Monday now, as my. When your mental health is suffering, it's hard to commit to doing something of that nature, even though it's talking about your mental health. Because of this turn for the better in my life, I'm feeling better about myself as a man, as a contributing member of society, as a fellow human. So I think I'll be able to start contributing a little bit more often to the program, and hopefully you can join in at 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, right here in Canada's capital. Gotta go. I'll see you.
Thank you, good sir. All right, kids and cubs. Ooh. All right. So let's see if it actually was for real a good meeting. And there you go. Dealing with the CPAC feed today, so there won't be any issues with there should not be any issues with commercial breaks on this one. So let's see. After the three introductions, Prime Minister Carney is gonna get into the meat of it. So let's see what it is that he has to say here. Uh, Basically, at this point, that's all they had to say, and we just get to the Q&A session here. Now, the first question, of course, is about pipelines. I really wish our journalists would not do this for the sole purpose that the economy needs more than freaking pipelines. And national unity is more than pipelines. But of course, everybody knows that the big drama, right? In journalism, if it bleeds, it leads. So let's go where there's most likely to be blood. Is, did you agree on a pipeline? Because if not, then Danielle Smith is going to blow her stack. We want to be here for that. So, well, let's see what happened.
20 minutes de questions. Judy Trin, first question.
Judy Trin, CTV News. Prime Minister, other than the premiers of BC and Quebec, there seems to be growing consensus in support of pipelines carrying bitumen east, west, probably north as well. Is the federal government at this point considering pipelines a project of national significance, and will you be sidestepping certain environmental requirements outlined in Bill C-69 to fast track such a project?
Well, the first thing to say is, and let me be a bit more specific, if I could, because and I will defer to the premiers to add, but the Western premiers and the premiers of the territories met and supported an approach. The Western Corridor, the Western and Arctic Corridor, effectively a corridor between port to port to port, from Pacific Northwest to James Bay to Grays Bay Point, and within that are opportunities in energy, critical minerals, and well beyond, and specifically within energy, opportunities, yes, for an oil pipeline to get to Tidewater. Now, within the broader context of national interest, the interest is in, as mentioned in the press release, decarbonized barrels. So working alongside forms of decarbonization for those barrels. That is absolutely in our interest. It provides diversification of trade partners. It provides the development of new industries. It provides economic activity across the west and into the north. So yes, there's real potential there. We took up a good deal of our time in discussions and potential to move forward on that. And if further developed, the federal government will look to advance it.
All right. So there is note in that response that there is still maybe some issues with bringing BC and Quebec on board when it comes to pipelines. But there's a new buzzword here: decarbonization. So what does that actually really mean? Right? But yeah, pipelines, there's an openness to it, clearly. I mean, he has been talking about conventional and clean energy since the beginning, specifically making sure that he includes both. And that clearly was all for Danielle. But yeah, you know, it's not a rejection. It seems that there's an openness. So, of course, what would happen at this case, if you are looking for drama, is you would take that prime minister's answer and then you would go around and you would say, well, hey, what about Alberta? You would turn around and say, well, oh, the prime minister just said that. So roll the camera to Danielle and go, Danielle, is that true? Because if you're looking for drama, right, that's where you go. So, of course, that's what happened. And at this point, you're thinking, okay, this is where the fireworks really start. Let's see if that is indeed the case. There we go.
I'm reading, if I'm understanding correctly, Prime Minister, you are saying that you would fast track a project involving decarbonized oil through pipelines, decarbonized energy. And is that something that Premier Smith, that you agree with, or do you feel that we need to get the bitumen out of the ground now as is, as soon as possible?
Well, let's call it the grand bargain, that we know that there is a group of oil sands companies that have been advocating for some time for what they call the Pathways Project that would decarbonize the production of their bitumen through the use of carbon capture, utilization and storage, ultimately using hydroelectric or small modular nuclear to decarbonize, and then direct air capture for the last mile. I think the point I was making to the Prime Minister and my colleagues is that there's lots of ways to decarbonize, but the Pathways project is an expensive project. It would cost anywhere from $10 to $20 billion to get built. And to make the economic case for that, having more egress with more barrels to be sold to Asia is the way to pay for it. If we had a 1 million barrel a day pipeline going to the northwest BC coast, that would generate about $20 billion a year in revenues. And so that seems like a pretty good value proposition if both of those projects can proceed at once.
Next question.
What? Who? What? Where? How? Why? Who? Who is she? And what did she do to Danielle Smith? There was a grand bargain to be had. If you actually built a pipeline that could carry enough oil to make something profitable. So this is Danielle Smith admitting, without admitting, that there was indeed no business case for all those pipelines that she's been crying about for the past few years, saying, if only this would have been approved, we would have done better. And it's like, but here she's saying, if there is a pipeline that could carry 1 million barrels, well, all of a sudden that becomes profitable. Now, of course, you have to be able to ship them, but there's also the tanker bill that will have to be dealt with that if she thinks that that's if she thinks that that's an obstacle. But she's not poo-pooing the idea. She's actually she doesn't seem happy, as you can tell here, right? Like everybody else is Joyce and whatnot like this, and she's like, well, like it's begrudging, but she's not being negative. She's not poo-pooing it. She's not torching. What the hell happened here? Do we have Magic Mark? Do we have the Danielle Whisperer? Or maybe we have someone who has a background in finance and who is all in on the green issue. And maybe he has a way of being able to harness a discussion and see how the links between several things, and is able to make a very persuasive all of the above business case, and can show the financial math that shows that it is feasible. These are skills that I would expect a man like him to have. And maybe by, rather than it being Alberta presenting Canada an offer it can't refuse. And of course, when everybody presents you an offer you can't refuse it. Because there's a catch. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe Mark Carney turned around and said, well, yeah, we could do that. And maybe that seems to be the thing that caught her attention. Now, she's talking about the Pathways Alliance project. I will be completely honest. I know a little bit about it, tangentially, but not enough to speak about it authoritatively. But I know that she really has been wanting that one. And that group has really been wanting that project to go through, and they keep on talking about it. And the big joke about it is, well, like, that'll never happen because it just can't be financed. To which she admitted it's very expensive. But if they have a pipeline that can cover those costs, all of a sudden that project doesn't become so pie in the sky anymore. And if the people at the Pathways Alliance are indeed those who control her, because let's not kid ourselves, she is an oil and gas lobbyist masquerading as a premier. If there's a way to make that project happen, that'd be great. But you have Danielle Smith agreeing to, who didn't want to do a damn thing green, talking about agreeing to find a way to decarbonize oil. So Carney is basically saying, yeah, we're happy to do a pipeline, but the oil that's in it needs to have less carbon in it to make sure that we have something that we actually can sell. Right? That's the point. There's no point in pumping it out of the ground if it's so dirty that nobody wants to buy it. And it seems that she is open to decarbonizing. Now, she wants to do it with carbon capture and storage and a whole bunch of other things, right? But she seems to be okay with decarbonizing. She's not particularly green. Remember, she just canceled all the renewable sector. So with Danielle Smith, what will be really interesting is in the next few months, whether or not we see that study that she is doing of the renewable sector, that alleged study, whether that study is complete and Alberta announces that it's going to get back in the game. If you see that announcement happening down the road, a couple months down the road, you know that they've got a deal going on of some kind, because Mark Carney is definitely not going to allow oil sands, as polluting as they are now, to be that which goes in that pipeline to be shipped. This also is Danielle Smith admitting that her whole argument about, oh darn, I lost the words. I had it, and then it just zipped right out of my mind. Yes, her whole argument about emissions caps and production caps. Right? That whole thing is like, well, it's like there's a production cap. No, it's not a production cap. It's an emission cap. If you can reduce the intensity per barrel, you can produce more. Yes. And the basic line is, it's impossible to increase production when you have an emissions cap. Well, no, that's not true. It's not impossible. It's actually rather very, very, very possible. You just have to be willing to do the work. And she did not seem to be willing to do the work. Well, but if the oil that needs to go in that pipeline needs to be decarbonized, that's reducing the emissions. That would be meeting the emissions cap without her actually admitting that she's going to meet the emissions cap so that she can produce more that can go in there. So I do not know what Mark Carney said to her, but she is, without saying it, reversing herself on certain positions, or at least admitting that there was a heavy dose of buffalo fecal matter in those responses. And she doesn't seem extremely happy about it. So I don't know if Prime Minister Carney found the right way to just corner her so that she have to have begrudging acceptance, because she really wants to keep this issue alive. And you will see it later on in this press conference that she really does want to have to keep the issue alive because she needs the fight. But it's like she's realizing that the ground on which she was fighting, at least on these two aspects, is no longer there. Is no longer solid ground. And might not be pleased that she's losing that and has to play the game a little bit. Very, very interesting. All right. let's continue on. So we have later on in this press conference, we moved to some questions in French, and Mark Carney is asked about Indigenous inclusion. He's asked, he's told that the AFN has issued a press release stating that the proposed law to assess and approve projects of national interest is a threat to their people and who are defended by treaty. And he was asked basically point blank, why are there no representatives from Indigenous groups here today? To me, an obvious answer would have been, if we are meeting nation to nation, then the nation of Canada is having its meeting, and then to figure out its position, then would go out and meet Indigenous groups. That would be one answer. But the Prime Minister gave another answer, which is kind of interesting. He said that he's had meetings already with the leaders of the AFN and other Indigenous groups, and there will be a consultation process as it pertains to the legislation, the projects themselves, and the considerations pertaining to the project. So it says there's 3 elements on which we need to get agreement and have discussions. And we have agreed, and he mentioned that during those meetings that he's had with First Nations leaders, that they've agreed to host a meeting in Winnipeg in July in order to discuss all of these matters. So this is already set and already agreed to before this meeting took place. That, yes, this is the process that we're going to follow. And right now, he's getting input from provinces so that he can form the legislation in certain ways. So it's not like the legislation is already written. I mean, there is some drafts and there's some documents in discussion and whatnot. And that's the thing that says, hey, wait a minute, you're starting without us. We need to be in from the ground. But the question is, where's the ground, right? Is the ground floor the initial organization to find out what Canada's position is? Or is the ground, once Canada figures out what its position is to then say, okay, now let's go to the partners and say, this is our position. What's yours? I guess, and can we make this work? But before legislation is written. So 2 different ways of doing things. You can achieve a good outcome with both processes, but it seems that in this case, the Prime Minister would prefer to come to Indigenous people prepared, knowing what all the provinces and territories are saying, so that he doesn't go and make a deal or have discussions with them and then gets upended and surprised by a premier saying, well, yeah, you said that, but no, we're not going to do that. And then that just blasts everything. Prime Minister, in this case, because he's dealing with a certain 13 different egos, probably wants to make sure that the home turf is solid before he goes and starts speaking to other nations. Right? So again, potentially positive. Now, had this meeting not already been predetermined to be taking place in July in Winnipeg, in which all these matters, of which he assured Indigenous communities and groups that none of these decisions would be made without them going into it. Those 2 elements together do lead one to hope that this could indeed be a constructive process on both sides, with the premiers and with the Indigenous community. And if that could happen, that would be absolutely fantastic. He's then asked in French, well, actually, Premier Legault was asked directly in French whether or not the 7,200 megawatt Gull Island project linking Newfoundland and Labrador to Quebec through electrical lines as part of the recent Churchill Falls Agreement would be considered a project of national importance. Legault says, well, I think it would. And after Mr. Legault, Premier Legault spoke, Mark Carney jumped in to intervene to confirm that that is indeed also his view. Interesting. So the conference continues, and basically the next question then is, well, hey, if all of this is going so well, then by when would these projects be agreed to, and when would we be ready to move forward with any of this? So let's see what it is that they have to say. Now, I'm unfortunately not able to set the timestamp at exactly where it is I wanted it. So you're going to hear a little bit of François Legault maybe at the end here before we get into the actual answer.
Et je suis tout à fait d'accord avec Monsieur le Premier ministre.
Prochaine question. Next question.
Hi, Joanna Smith with The Logic. Prime Minister Carney, can you spell out with some detail how exactly projects will be chosen for the list and by when, and when will we know about them?
So, several things. First, there will be review. The projects, we discussed a number of projects today. They're in various stages of preparation. They're in various stages of preparation. I think there's a shared understanding based on our discussion of the main criteria for consideration. I listed them. They're in the communique. I'm not going to repeat them given interest of time. We will work with project proponents on assessing projects relative to those criteria. As those criteria are increasingly well understood, in the national interest, Indigenous participation, example, advancing clean energy, material benefits to Canadians. As those are increasingly well understood, building the resilience of Canada, strategic economy of Canada, autonomy of Canada, more projects will come forward. It's not like the gate doesn't come down all of a sudden. Projects will also fall by the wayside because they won't necessarily meet all those criteria. It's a living list. But what's being clear is what's being put in place, or what is being proposed, will be proposed in legislation, is the ability of the federal government to devote the right resources to these projects, to make quick decisions about those projects that respect our environmental responsibilities, other responsibilities, work with the provinces directly to move forward and to get the country building. That's what we're talking about. Moving the country forward, building the country. I think it says it somewhere behind me. That's what we're here for. That's what we're committed to. That's what the focus of the discussion was today.
All right. So there you go, kits and cubs. Again, we see a situation here where seems the media questions. Now, again, these are legitimate questions, but the order of the questions and where they're going, right? You can tell that they're looking for the drama. Like, where's the drama? There's got to be some drama. There's always drama. Still, no drama. Right? Not all the projects will make it. It's a living list. There's no, like, get your projects in by this time or it won't happen. It's a very open, sort of fluid type process. But how will projects be chosen and by when? Right? There's no answer on that now. Clearly, right? This is tell me what projects you've got. Let's discuss them. Is there anything that we agree everyone's all in the national interest? Or which ones do we want to pursue? Like this, if you get this, are you okay to not stand in the way of? If you get X, are you okay with not standing in the way of Y happening? Right? That type of thing. Now, the topic sort of shifts a little bit to something else that we have been talking about on the show every now and then, that we feel hasn't been getting a lot of mention. But it seems that in this meeting, they actually did have productive and substantive discussions about it. Because, as you know, kits and cubs, while we are having a tariff war with the United States, that is not the only country with which we are having a tariff war at the moment. And there has been very, very, very little public talk about what we're going to do to deal with this one. And of course, I'm talking China here. And, when we're making the point about Western alienation and the argument saying that it's not completely, a fabrication, there is some stuff. The example that we kept on bringing up is we've got what's going on with steel and aluminum in the auto sector, and all the talk about responding to Trump, and all this push to form one economy rather than 13 seems to be all focused on Trump. But there are some people out west that got smacked with some really, really, really juicy tariffs from China because we went down the same road as the United States when President Joe Biden was still in office on taxing EVs, electric vehicles from China. So let's see how this topic, surprisingly for me, because I wasn't expecting it to be discussed at all, given how little it's been discussed, period, to show up. But it does.
Thank you. And on another topic, the communique says the federal government committed to working urgently to remove Chinese tariffs on Canadian agriculture and seafood products. What does that work involve? Is the Canadian government prepared to lift the 100% tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles?
The Canadian government is engaging with its Chinese counterparts, including at the ministerial level, and will continue those discussions. They are a top priority for us.
I would just add to that, that is precisely what this will take to not only secure our market access for products like canola oil and canola meal in the long term, but to secure a more broad trading relationship with China. They are the largest, they are the largest populated country in the world and likely one of the largest economies in the world as well. The fact that the federal government is working diligently not only to have those tariffs removed, but working diligently to broaden that relationship into the future, I think is precisely what we need to do as a nation.
That's a major priority for Manitoba as well, and I think it speaks to the fact that we're trying to solve this complex multivariable equation. We have the Trump administration on one side, and then we have an ascendant People's Republic of China on the other side. A nation of our size, which has great people, abundant natural resources, the element to be able to solve that equation that confronts us is unity. It's being able to work together. And so I think that this meeting here today of the First Ministers representing Canadians from different walks of life is an important step forward for us being able to have that showdown with China, have that showdown with the Trump administration, and make sure that you and your jobs come out on top.
All right. Now, great response from all three. The next little bit is Wab Kinew is going to repeat what he said, but I did not know if you knew this, and I heard Doug Ford refer to it, but Wab Kinew, a lot of people are talking about saying that he'll be prime minister one day. Take a listen to this.
Oui, certainement. Cet défi avec la Chine, puis avec M. Trump, c'était un très grand défi pour le Manitoba et puis tout le Canada. Alors, en tant qu'un pays avec un peuple merveilleux, avec beaucoup de ressources naturelles, les choses qu'on doit se souvenir pour diriger contre ces défis, c'est un rassemblement, une unité nationale. Et cette rencontre aujourd'hui était une étape très importante pour avancer ce projet.
I knew that Mr. Kinew could speak French. I did not know he could speak it that well and without notes. For me, this is a little bit of a revelation. A happy revelation, especially if you have a Métis population, Manitoba Métis Federation, right? Because Métis, there's a French component. So in one way, it's not surprising, but in another way, just his ease and proficiency. It was like, oh, it's like the premier of Manitoba definitely speaks French way better than Doug Ford, that's for sure, who hardly speaks any at all. But he's on a level equivalent or superior to even Mr. Singh. His French was very good. If he can speak it that easily off the top of his head, his French is actually better than Pierre Poilievre's. Interestingly enough. So in that response, this is going to go into the weeds. There was a verb conjugation that was incorrect, yes, but the verb conjugation that he chose was actually not one of the three basic tenses So he's aware of the tenses. So his French is actually rather impressive. So, yeah, if this guy does want to be prime minister one day, that is definitely in the cards for him. Now, the next question comes from the National Post. And of course, well, when you get the National Post, of course, they're going to try to stir the pot. So listen to the question. You can tell, oh, yeah, there's the National Post trying to stir the pot. And again, a pleasantly surprising response.
Next question.
Stephanie Taylor, The National Post. Prime Minister, why are you not prepared today to announce or name any specific project that you've heard from premiers that would be fast-tracked under this new approvals process?
Look,
this is so disingenuous as a question. Did anybody really expect that there would be like come out of that meeting says, here are the 5 projects that we're going to pursue and they're all going to be pre-approved and let's go? No, there's more work than that. So this is a bad faith question. It's a gotcha. But let's see how the Prime Minister handles it.
Well, the first thing, Stephanie, I can give you, if I may, lots of examples of those projects, which range from Grays Bay Port and Road, Churchill Port, the Pathways Alliance, Northwest Coast Oil Pipeline, Intertie Bay Nord, Ring of Fire, La Fosse du Labrador, Contrecoeur Terminal, and on. Now I've offended some of my members because we don't have enough time for me to go through all the projects. There is a long list of projects that bring the country together, diversify our markets, make us more resilient, create good jobs and growth, have very good prospects of Indigenous partnerships and beyond. Okay, so they're there. The purpose of the meeting today was to catalyze bringing projects up, getting a shared understanding of what would constitute a project of national interest, explaining the new federal approach to this, building consensus and unity, as Premier Canoe just said, and this, if I may, this is a unified group. This is a group that wants to work together and will work together to build our country. And now we move quickly from this position. The job of the federal government, our first job, is legislation. Legislation to give ourselves the ability to make this a reality. But we will very quickly move into the summer to refine that list from the list we have. I think as more private proponents become aware of the opportunity here, we're going to see more projects coming forward.
Well, let me tell you, I'm going to be very blunt here. This has been the best meeting we've had in 10 years. Simple. Best meeting I've had in 7 years. And there was no expectations that the Prime Minister was going to come out and say, you get that project, you get that project. It was a great discussion. Now, we were all talking. Now it's time to put it into action. All of us are responsible. But I thought it was an incredible meeting, great communication, great collaboration, and we all walked out of that room united. And that's the most important thing. Now the Prime Minister is going to go to work, get the legislation passed, and we'll divvy it up.
Oh my God, I had no sound the entire time. I'm so sorry. The mute button turned itself on. Oh, damn. Okay. Apologies, kits and cubs. I didn't notice. Sometimes when I go in and out of video, the mute button turns itself on automatically to not pick up other sounds. And I didn't see that it was on the entire time I was talking there when I stopped. So Mr. Grizzly's going to have to do a clever edit there. In this clip, I'm going to have to repeat myself because nobody heard me. You will notice that Doug Ford slides in to shut down the National Post. It's absolutely incredible. I never thought I would see that. So as the National Post is trying to come in and stir up the pot, why haven't you do this? Why aren't there a list? Why don't we know what is approved right now? Aren't you slow? Where's your plan? Doug Ford shuts it down. Best meeting. I'm going to be blunt. Everything's fantastic. Notice that this is him also sticking it to Pierre Poilievre for the second time in there because the National Post is really pro Poilievre. So the narrative that they were going to write, Doug Ford shut that down. You're going to have to find another narrative. So that was kind of interesting. On the previous point as well that was made when we're talking about what was going on with China, you will notice that that was in the communique itself. So this is not a side issue, right? The discussion about crime, the discussion about these tariffs that are affecting the West, the prairie provinces on canola, right? Very, very important. But you will also notice that the Prime Minister mentioned the seafood industry, which is another industry that China has targeted as a result of us having acquiesced to then President Joe Biden's request to put a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles. So the seafood portion and the canola portion hardly got any national coverage. So we have the Prime Minister acting here because not only on crime, but also on issues that are of interest to more rural communities, particularly in West, but also at the East. So what's going on here is if we see this sustained type of talk and action over a year or 2 years, what the Prime Minister is doing here and what the Liberal Party is doing here is trying to make some inroads in some bases that are voting Conservative to nibble away at the edges. If they can steal, knock off 1% here and 0.5% there, if they can nibble away just 3% of the vote that the Conservatives got last time, that would be a difference between a majority for the Liberals next time around, right? In case something happens or somebody wants to go early. So some very strategic and clever positioning by the Prime Minister for the long term. If this is maintained, if these are things that are initial pieces of groundwork that are being laid for him to run on later on. Yes, it could just be a one-time mention as well, but I'm noticing that those things are there, and those are things, if someone is a long game player, and I have the feeling that this Prime Minister, like the previous Prime Minister is as well, although the previous Prime Minister was a long game player, much more on the EQ side, this one on more on the IQ side. But you can still see the tracks being laid for a long game here. And that is very, very, very specifically targeted to one, from Doug Ford's side at least, and the collaboration that he has with the Prime Minister, because keeping Pierre Poilievre personally down, because, and then nibbling away at the fortunes and the support of the Conservative Party of Canada itself. It's extremely clever. And if it works, it is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But yeah, very interesting move. Apologies, kids and cubs, for having not noticed that the mute thing had turned its on itself. Now we get to the point or Doug Ford's going to keep talking, but all of a sudden it becomes a love-in for a little bit here. And so let's enjoy premiers actually getting along for a change.
I described him today as Santa Claus. He's coming, and his sled was full of all sorts of stuff. Now he's taking off back to the North Pole. He's going to sort it out, and then he's going to call us. So,
and we're building
short of Santa Claus is my big belly. I got to loan it to him.
Well,
and we're building a port at the North Pole, I think.
That's right, absolutely. And critical minerals up in the North Pole.
And if I could build on the example that Doug gave, I think one of the critical pieces here is the unity. So while on Christmas morning at my house, my kids are pretty excited and not fighting each other over their toys, New Brunswick is really excited to see the Eastern Energy Partnership as a priority project, and we are in full support of our colleagues in the West advancing the Western and Arctic Corridor, and we're not going to be in competition with each other because we're in support of every province here advancing their interests in a way that we're all aware of, that we're all supportive of, and that demonstrates to Canadian the unity among Canadian premiers, the strength around this table, that we're all on the same page to build an economy that serves every Canadian from each of our positions in each of our provinces.
Sorry, I want to just thank the Prime Minister for, on behalf of Northern Premiers, it's been a long time at the table asking for a focus on Arctic security. And being able to walk in here, we've always had the support of all our colleagues. Doug, as the chair of COF, has always been right behind us, Premier Ford. But being here today and actually seeing action put to that, and also for the nation-building projects in all three territories, having that opportunity to have support behind them and understanding that they are a key point within our strategy for Arctic security. I just want to say thank you, and what a refreshing opportunity to be at a meeting like this today.
So, okay, who saw that coming? Susan Holt, and Premier, not for long because he's announced he's going to step down, Ranj Pillai of Yukon, talking again, and some jokes, some laughter, all that kind of stuff. But hey, fourth thing on the communique, right? Arctic sovereignty. Now the Prime Minister's been talking about that a lot, but it seems that they've touched on a lot of things. And as Kit Saucy mentioned here, I think it is. Kit Elaine. Pardon me. Here, I'm going to read the comment in. Maybe it won't let me show it because I've got two screens here. Let's try this because I do want you to see it. There we go. Wab Canoe wants a deep water port near Nelson River, so a pipeline won't need to go to Quebec, in my opinion. Yep, that is possible. With however, the consideration here in terms of national security, because we have that Line 5 that goes through the United States, and that's a lot of the oil that we get to heat ourselves here on the East Coast comes from that. There is still an interest in getting something, if not to Quebec, at least to Sarnia, so that if the United States decides to that they're going to cut us off, if they do, they'll let those northern bastards freeze in the dark type thing. That we do have a way to get it from coast to coast within the borders of our own nation. At this point, there is a national security element to that, and that's probably one of the reasons why Premier Legault is stating that frequently that there might be increasing social acceptability within the province of Quebec for one now, because the luxury of saying we don't want one because we got Line 5 and we're okay, that's not as solid ground as it was before. So, and that's where you're starting to see a bit of a rift between Premier Legault and Yves-François Blanchet, the Bloc Québécois, on this specific issue provincially. All right. So let's see what else that we have here from this press conference. So you get a bit of a love-in, and the National Post reporter, clearly not happy with this, comes with their follow-up. And although it is a very valid question, absolutely, again, as I stated, the economy is more than frickin' pipelines, right? So as soon as I heard the question, it's like, oh my God, will you stop with it? But it is a valid question. However, it seems that when I was yelling it out loud, Prime Minister Mark Carney maybe heard me yelling out loud because he did address the issue of it being more than about just pipelines in his response proactively, which made me very, 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 very happy. So let's see what it is he had to say.
There are differences of opinion around the table as to whether an oil pipeline should be a candidate to be fast-tracked without a proponent pitching one. Prime Minister, can you clarify, is the federal government prepared to say it's willing to fast-track an oil pipeline without a private sector proponent saying it wants to build one?
Well, look, it's not a decision. It's not a decision we have to make today. I think what's clear, be absolutely clear. We're saying, and this is consistent. This is consistent with the agreement we had as First Ministers back in March when we met in Ottawa. When we talked about energy and trade corridors. It had a little less focus because we hadn't translated that into a legislative initiative and more specifics about projects. There is an ability to build that energy infrastructure, that oil pipeline. I'm going to refer to my earlier answer and to Premier Smith's answer moments ago about a grand bargain. Decarbonizing the barrels, various ways to do that. I agree with her, and so the opportunity is there. The market is there in Asia. It is within. Last point. It is within a bigger framework that the Western premiers and the territorial premiers have come up with, which is the Western Arctic corridor. So it's much more than that, and sometimes the discussion is reduced far too much to one type of project. It's important, but the range of what we're discussing is much, much bigger than that. And if I can just finish with this is the point for the country. Our ambitions must be bigger and broader, and what we heard today, what we discussed today, was entirely consistent with that. Big, broad ambitions consistent with having the strongest economy in the G7 and being an energy superpower. Thank you.
We'll have time. And what I heard from the Prime Minister is that, it's up to us to find the proponent, I think. I think if there's some certainty that a process is going to be successful in a reasonable period of time, a 2-year window, I think that there will be a proponent that will step forward. My view would be that we'll have failed at the assignment if government has to build another pipeline. That will demonstrate to us that we didn't create the conditions for private investment to come to the table. So I'm encouraged that the Prime Minister is prepared to do a 2-track process. Let's identify a project and a window and work towards identifying the ways, some of the barriers that have been in the way of the current regulatory process, at the same time as working on fixing the regulatory process so that it makes future projects easier to approve. I think the reason we have to have a fast track is because we know that there are barriers. And so if we can kickstart it and have a dual track, I think that we may be able to achieve the outcome. We'll know in a couple of months' time, hopefully, whether this new approach is going to work, but I think it's worth giving it a try.
And all of that is true, there are very much indirect benefits because, as the Prime Minister said, the corridor, port to port, and then maybe to an Arctic port, a Grays Bay corridor, is significant for so many other projects. It would go in the vicinity of 2 hydroelectric facilities and allow us to actually start to advance additional power into industries that are creating wealth and creating jobs in northern parts of our provinces. We have, potash mines that are expanding and doubling production. The largest potash mine in the world is being constructed in our province as we speak. We are going to need more rail capacity for other products, agri-food products, which are the most sustainable in the world. Our potash, which we are going to produce more of and need to get it out to countries around the world through a Pacific port or an Atlantic port. And so as we move through this discussion, the opportunities around enhancing ports like Kitimat and Prince Rupert are, tremendously valuable, not just for the discussion around energy products and oil specifically, but much beyond that to hydroelectric power, empowering the industries that are creating wealth, additional port capacity for products that we may produce in Saskatchewan, but many other provinces as well. And so this is I would say, a generational opportunity for us to achieve some of the aspirations the Prime Minister has put forward, but a generational opportunity for Canadians as well. And I really look forward to where these discussions go over the course of the next number of months.
Okay. Now, this is the second time now that Danielle Smith says something positive about what's going on there. And Scott Moe calling this a generational opportunity. What the hell did Mark Carney say to these people? I mean, wow. This is not the reaction I was expecting from Danielle Smith, that it's worth a shot. Like, is that, did everybody hear that? Because I was fully expecting, I mean, I would have called it. I probably would have even placed money on it that Danielle Smith was going to come out all fire. And there's no fire. There's some doubt, there's some skepticism, and again, we're going to hear it, but she's encouraged. It's worth a shot. I'm stunned. I'm literally stunned. All right. But yeah, so far it looks that it's real, that it was indeed positive. Now, and Premier Moe says that this is a generational opportunity. It is seized upon this by Premier Canoe and then the Premier of Nunavut, PJ Akiagok, next. And I want to show this because, again, it seems that this feeling of good vibes is really coast to coast to coast here.
Can I just jump in? Sorry, PJ, just interrupt. I just want to put a fine point on what my colleagues have said here. It's a generational opportunity for Canadians, but it's also a generational opportunity for some of the poorest communities in our country. And if we have a window of opportunity to build up Canada and we can get more kids tied into an education, to a pathway to trades, to college, to university, if we can put the road and transmission and pipe infrastructure to build out those opportunities, this country is not just going to be better off in terms of the GDP growth. We're going to be better off in terms of making sure that every Canadian kid can reach their full potential in this great country.
Again, if he has aspirations to be Prime Minister one day, that's the kind of answer you give. Now on to the Premier of Nunavut, PJ Akiagok.
Yeah, I was just going to add as well that what an incredible moment that we're in. You look across this beautiful and very strong country of Canada, and that nation building had happened all the way from the East Coast right to the West Coast, and that hasn't quite met up to the North as well. So I'm very thankful for the incredible leadership of Prime Minister Carney, who really recognizes that there's incredible opportunities and that we actually have solutions to bring when we're looking at different corridors, access to critical minerals, access to create markets, whether it's to Asia or Europe, and to assert our sovereignty. You look to the north, and the infrastructure gap between north and south is something that I think we're all taking note, and that this is our moment as a country. We're unified around wanting to see us prosper and to become stronger to come out of it, and very much look forward to seeing actual infrastructure built to ensure that our communities are healthy, and that's how you best assert your sovereignty, is by how healthy your communities are.
All right. Some, again, very constructive, meaningful statements here by the premiers. This is all very good stuff. Now, if you're sitting here and you're thinking, oh, come on, this sounds too good to be true. There's no way all these egos got in a room together and actually got along. Well, hey, you would be right for thinking that. And it seems that the media was also very skeptical about this. So once again, media asks about this, trying to stir the pot a little again, seeing if there is indeed any drama here to be had. And of course, you know who they go to.
We'll have time for one last question. Dernière question.
Phil Tank, Saskatoon Star Phoenix. I wanted to ask Premiers Moe and Smith whether they share Premier Ford's enthusiasm about this this new, what seems to be like a new relationship with the federal government.
I can go, and yes, I think we do have an opportunity here, and as I spoke to some of the the generational opportunities that I think not just in the corridor that I spoke to specifically, but the conversation around really aspiring to a greater economic future than maybe what we've had in the last number of years. And Phil, we've been very much a growth-focused government here within the province of Saskatchewan. And I see some of that growth, a balanced focus on that growth nationally. And we applaud that. And we, as you know, the last number of weeks and months, I think it's fair to say that we as a government are putting forward our best foot to give every opportunity to work alongside the federal government, look to work alongside other provinces and other Canadians in order for us to achieve that. Because we support, in this province, we support the aspiration to grow our economy to lead the G7. And we want to be part of that, and we believe we can be a big part of that in Saskatchewan. We support the aspiration for Canada to become a global energy superpower. And that means we are going to have discussions, some of them, not all of them easy, but have the discussions about advancing all of the energy products that we have and all the natural resources essentially that we have in a sustainable way and in an inclusive way. We've always supported that, and we continue to support that today. And so I would say, in the meetings that I've had, whether they be First Ministers meetings, Council of Federation meetings over the last 7.5 years, that today was a very positive meeting, and I hope that Canadians would feel very positive with their provincial, territorial, and federal leaders coming out of here today in agreement on that.
I would say I'm encouraged by the immediate change of tone that we've seen from recent months. I think that there's, when we hear the Prime Minister talking about being an energy superpower, we haven't heard that kind of language for some time on both conventional and clean power. And I think that the fact that we've quantified that we've got 1.8 trillion barrels of oil, bitumen, and about 165 billion barrels is recoverable at today's technology, even at $60 oil, that's a $9 trillion asset. And you simply wouldn't have a policy of leaving a $9 trillion asset in the ground when it can stand to benefit everyone. You have to address issues, of course, of Indigenous ownership and equity partnership. You have to address issues, of course, of emissions and other environmental issues. But that's what I heard, is how do we have an all-of-the-above approach? And I think that's very encouraging. So we're willing to work with the federal government on addressing some of the issues that are going to stand in the way of creating the environment for private investment. It doesn't help you to build a pipeline to the West Coast if there's a tanker ban. It becomes difficult to expand your natural gas market if you've got net zero power regs that are requiring it to be phased out by 2035. And you can't expand production if you have an emissions cap. So those are future conversations to be had about how we create that environment. But I think what I heard was that the Prime Minister wants to work on a dual track to be able to find some compromises on all of those, and I'm encouraged by that.
Okay. Again, I'm encouraged by that. Danielle Smith, in her answer, talked about clean and about conventional and clean energy. She admitted that there needs to be stuff done to recognize Indigenous title and Indigenous equity. And she even talked about, yes, we do realize that there has to be something done about emissions. Are we watching the same damn press conference? Now, you will notice the moment I told you it was coming, though, you could see her, right? You saw her squint her eyes. Like this was says, well, of course, this is not going to be possible if you don't give me the other 3 things I had on my ransom list, right? Like killing C-69 and, changing that tanker bill and all that kind of stuff. Like this, you could see her eyes squinting. You could see that she was getting happy. She was back on familiar turf like this. And then her face rested back down to the sort of like, yeah, I guess it's encouraging type thing after. But you could see in her face the expression change when she went on those 3 lines of attack like this. So she's signaling there she still intends to be a thorn in the side, right? If you're going to do all of this, but you're not going to remove that tanker ban, then what's the point? Well, maybe we get a deep water port somewhere else. And therefore, you don't have to worry about the tanker ban from BC with the very sensitive environmental considerations. Maybe there's another route now. That's if we do have a deep water port there. That would be a safer route of travel. Who knows? I'm not sure if enough studies have been done on that yet to figure out if there is another one. But maybe that would become a non-issue. Maybe. Who knows? Or maybe, again, with the proper environmental regulation. Of course, as everybody knows, that when it comes to those things, though, with pipeline and the tanker and stuff like that, a spill is not a matter of if, but when. It will happen at some point. Right? So, but yeah, again, she's, quote, encouraged. That strikes me as abnormal for Danielle Smith to be encouraged about anything federal government. But again, you saw that, right? The journalist, come on, Mo, come on, Smith. You don't really share this enthusiasm that the Prime Minister has here, right? There's got to be something, right? Seems not. At the moment, it seems not. It's kind of interesting. Now, it's going to get into a little bit of conversation about net zero energy. And again, you are going to hear something surprising from Danielle Smith.
I noticed there's language about net zero electricity generation by 2050. Is that a mandate? Does that mean that the federal government is going to say you have to reach net zero by 2050, or it doesn't say that specifically, but I'm just curious, whether there's consensus on that. Well, I know there's premiers that don't agree with that.
Well, we have policy in Alberta that has set a target of being carbon neutral by 2050. My grievance with the previous Prime Minister is that he was trying to advance that to 2030 and 2035, which was unachievable. So if we can work towards a 2050 target, I do know that the power producers in my province are looking at that as a potentially achievable target. When you look at carbon capture, utilization and storage, the opportunity for nuclear, both conventional as well as small scale, and the conversation that we're now having about interties, that we might be able to bring in hydroelectric power. So 2050 has been a target that our province has set out.
Okay. Did anybody expect Danielle Smith to ride to the rescue on that question? Now, it is true that she was always saying 2050. Again, you'll notice the little smirk and smile on her face when she talks about Trudeau and gets a dig in because that's her happy place. But then her face comes back down after that. But yeah, and you'll notice that she mentioned electric hydro. It seems that if they're discussing a grid and there's a way to get hydropower from other provinces into Alberta, everything that she's been saying for the last 2 years about baseload, baseload, baseload. We have to do more oil. We have to do more gas because we need more baseload. Well, suddenly that becomes less of a consideration. If there's a way to get hydroelectricity from other provinces to provide energy to your province in an instance where there's not enough baseload, it changes the game. the pieces on the chessboard change then. Interesting. So possibly more than one move by Carney and all the premiers together to remove pretense for objection from the province of Alberta on this. It's like, well, don't worry, we'll have the electrical grid, so you don't have to worry about more baseload power because other provinces will be able to supply that. If she's going to do decarbonization with those small modular reactors, the nuclear reactors, well, I'm sure there might be some excess power from that to help with baseload as well, right? All of a sudden, the need to, that argument of hers suddenly gets dismantled. She needs to find something else. But if it's there and it alleviates that concern, well, then maybe we can move forward. So again, very, very interesting choices of words here and choices of moments in which to intervene. I believe that there's a little more on this from another premier. So let's go to that.
Yeah, there's a number of aspects at play here with respect to how much power are we going to need in the next couple of decades in each of our respective jurisdictions, where that power is going to come from. We're having a very active conversation in finding our way through the nuclear regulatory process here in Saskatchewan. As we look ahead over the next 10, 15, and 20 years, we've talked actively about aspiring and targeting a 2050 net zero timeline, but we're also focused on the affordability and reliability of power that we're providing to not only industries but to families and people that live here in Saskatchewan. And so there's a much is part of that conversation as we move forward. You're hearing the energy dominance conversation south of the border. Those are focused on powering powering data centers, essentially, moving forward. So Canada is going to be part of that increase in electricity demand, that increase in energy demand, and that's why I'm encouraged by the conversations that we're all able to have here today with respect to becoming that global energy superpower, but doing so by looking at all of the energy sources that we have, and that's what we're doing in Saskatchewan as well, but always with a mind of being environmentally sustainable and a lower carbon footprint in the future than what you have today.
Okay, Scott Moe, talking about lowering the footprint? Scott Moe. In this press conference, I've heard more pro-green talk by Danielle Smith and Scott Moe than I've heard in their entire political careers. Again, what did Mark Carney say to these people in that meeting? Whatever, again, there's only two ways. Either he's a hypnotist or a magician of some kind and put a spell on all of them, or he's able, because he's been studying this for so long, he's able to make the environmental argument in a conservative business case way that appeals to these people in a way that no prime minister has ever been able to do before. So, again, very, very promising. Don't know where it's going to lead, but exceedingly promising. Now, in this next little clip, we're going to watch Doug Ford for the third time stick it to Pierre Poilievre.
This is a generational opportunity. I can't remember that everyone sitting around the table with a willing partner from the federal government, willing partners from 13 premiers. And do you know who the biggest willing partner is right now? Are the people of Canada. They want to move. And do you know who's responsible for doing that? Is President Trump. When our country comes under attack from President Trump, we unite. And we're a resilient country. And everyone realizes that if we don't move, we'll be left behind. And the consequences will be 10 times worse if we just sit back and do absolutely nothing.
Okay, so there you go. Doug Ford, once again, sticking it to Pierre Poilievre a little bit on his ability to make a full-throated stance against Donald Trump, something that Doug Ford doesn't seem to have a problem doing. Now, of course, the reason may be because Doug Ford is like, hey, Trump, this is my turf to hollow out, not yours, as evidenced by Bill 5. But in this moment, he sees an opportunity to make the big stand against Trump that he knows that Pierre cannot make. And to show that he's willing to work with Canada to stand against Trump, which is a commitment Pierre cannot make. Interesting. Now, here's the bit. Had Doug Ford stopped talking there, would have been good. But Doug Ford kept talking. Now, he doesn't say anything bad, and there's a couple of good things that are there. But had he stopped there, the power of the moment, boom, would have been signed, sealed, and delivered. Kind of loses the power with the rest of the response, but I'm going to play it because there are one or two elements in there that are still important. He just takes a while to get to them.
I describe Canada, and excuse the pun, as a big, huge gold mine. Now we have to start mining the gold, getting it out there. And no matter if it's the energy corridors being, as you've heard many of us say, being an energy superpower around the world, be it oil and gas, or be it nuclear energy and small modular reactors that we're leading the G7. That's what we need to do. We need to unleash. And as Premier Smith said, we have to create the environment and the conditions for companies to come here and invest. If we continue putting red tape and regulations and high taxes, guess what? No one's going to come and invest. But we're all confident, and I'm confident with the leadership of the Prime Minister, that he's creating that environment and conditions for people to come here and companies to come here and invest. And tell the world Canada's open for business. I'll leave you with this. United we stand, divided we fall. And I can tell you we're a united group. I'll pass it over to you, Prime Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We will notice here that Doug Ford tries to emulate the Prime Minister in this answer, right? With an end, and you know, all the questions, all he does is all answer. And I'll leave you with this. That's a move that the Prime Minister does. But and one more thing, I'll leave you with this last thing, and then he makes his last point, right? So Doug Ford sees what Mark Carney is doing, sees that it's working for him, and he's trying to adopt some of that affect there. You can tell he hasn't tested it out long enough because it was a bit clumsy getting there. And he had already said, united we stand, divided we fall. I think it was in the opening press. So, I mean, he's repeating that line, right? I always say, that this was the first two times I've ever heard him say that in 7 years. So he doesn't always say that. But you can see Doug Ford is actually trying to mimic and mirror the Prime Minister here, and then throws it back to him. He also mentions about having good conditions for business to happen, which is while giving some praise to Danielle Smith, that Danielle Smith is right about these things, but it's also a dig on Danielle Smith because Danielle Smith is pushing a sovereignty agenda, and we all know what happened to the province of Quebec financially and with attracting international investment when there was a sovereignty push. It disappeared. So Danielle Smith, I'm not sure if she's going to be able to keep on with that sovereignty. She's claiming that no pipelines were possible, but under this, if you can guarantee a pipeline that would ship the number of barrels a day that would make it profitable, well then in that case, and with some support, I guess in some way to Pathways Alliance, then decarbonization becomes feasible. And the project becomes feasible. And if there's a 2-year approval, then maybe people from international investment that will attract it, and that the project could fund itself, because she said it will have failed if we need to fund it again, right? So all those conditions are there, but if she has a separation push going on, doesn't matter how profitable the project is, doesn't matter. Like this, the international community is not going to invest in a politically unstable climate, especially should Alberta become its own country one day. If that's the prospect, well, then laws can change on a dime, right? So she's going, if she's really serious about this, she's going to have to do two things. One, she's going to have to tamper down the separation talk, because you're not going to get any international funding for that pipeline that she wants if she's talking about breaking up the country at the same time. That's not going to happen. And she probably, as Kit Linda M mentioned here and I mentioned before, she's probably going to have to re-enter the renewable game. And maybe a precondition. Like Mark Carney probably said, you're going to have to re-enter the renewable game. She's probably not saying it now, because you do this however you want to save face. So that's why I'm saying you might get an announcement. Maybe there'll be an announcement 3 or 4 months from now, or a couple months from now. Oh yeah, the report's in, and yeah, okay, we're back in renewables. If you see that, that's probably because that conversation went on somewhere. It's like, if we're going to be an energy superpower, you got to do it. Now, in one of her responses, she did mention conventional and clean energy, which also gives me puts a bug in my ear that maybe that's something that we're going to hear. Another comment that was made, I think it was also by Kit Linda, when you're looking to the Indigenous issue in Ontario. Saul Mamakwa, we've talked about, who is an MPP, was speaking truth to power in the Ontario legislature about what Doug Ford is doing with regard to Bill 5 and Indigenous communities and all that kind of stuff. And he accused the premier of saying untruths, and of course, parliamentary convention indicates that you cannot insist that a fellow honorable member is lying, particularly lying in the House or in the legislature. So he was made to leave the legislature, which I'm sure he happily did, because he was not going to take those words back. That's not a good look. So I wouldn't be surprised as well if there aren't any discussions between the Prime Minister and Doug Ford. What you're doing on Bill 5 here, not particularly conducive to my plan. Because you may want to do this, but if you do that, you are going to be tangled up in court for years. And that project is not going to happen. Because even worse than there not being an environmental and economic climate to fund the project at the moment is there being one, but it just gets stalled because you wouldn't do the right thing the right way the first time, and now you're in court for years, and then interest in the project just disappears by the time it gets resolved. So if Doug Ford really does want the Ring of Fire to go through, his Bill 5 is probably not conducive to that happening quickly. And if Mark Carney wants things to happen quickly and maybe has some money to put on the table with regards to the development of the Ring of Fire and faster approval processes, then maybe there's no need for Bill 5 anymore. So there could be and now, of course, pulling it full back might be too big of a step, but there could be an amendment process where the thing gets severely watered down, or there could be an announcement of some type of agreement between Ontario and certain Indigenous communities. Say, well, now we don't need Bill 5 since we have this agreement. Something like that can happen. And you have to remember that Tim Hodgson, the new Minister for Energy, is a very, very close friend of Mark Carney, probably one of the few people in the world that he trusts implicitly. And he has, as the former leader of Hydro One, experience in signing these types of deals with Indigenous communities. So the things are there on the federal side to make negotiations with Indigenous communities on projects related to energy happen and happen well. But right now, Doug Ford with his Bill 5 is in the way of that. So watch those two premieres over the next few months. If you see a re-engagement with renewables in Alberta, and if you see a re-engagement with Indigenous communities of the North, like this, or a substantial rewrite of Bill 5, you'll know that that was discussed in this meeting. That just happened. All right. We're nearing the end of it here with the press conference. I think, yeah, this is Mr. Carney basically closes it really well. Wab Canoe, as the Prime Minister was getting up, asks to speak one more time about the wildfires, thus sort of cutting the impact of the moment. Now, Premier Canoe apologizes for doing that, says it's been done to me many times too, so I apologize. While Mr. Canoe didn't do anything or didn't say anything that anybody could object to when he made his last intervention, not sure if I would have done that for this, because each one of these premiers gets to scrum afterwards, and these comments could have been made then. It's usually not a good idea when the Prime Minister has a great meeting and ends it on a really good moment that's going to make a clip for you to cut that, to sort of steal the moment, steal the thunder there. So I'm not sure how well advised this move was, but then again, this is a comment about wildfires and, the national situation and all that kind of stuff. And while it had been, I believe, addressed in the opening comments, I don't think it had been addressed in the closing comments yet. So as Premier of Manitoba, I can understand him wanting to take every opportunity to be able to make these points. But again, this one is maybe just more of a matter of taste rather than a deep offense or something to get offended about. I'm personally wondering whether or not it was the most judicious move at this time. But let's hear Prime Minister Mark Carney finish this off, and then the final comment from Premier Canoe.
Premier, thank you all to all the premiers and your teams for all the effort. Sometimes you don't know what you have until you've lost it. We're fortunate. We haven't lost anything. We were threatened, and the Canadian people stood up to the Americans. We know what we have, and now we're going to build on it. Taking matters absolutely under our control. We're united. We're going to build together, and we're going to build for all. We're going to build for all Canadians. That's what came out of this meeting. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Great end, right? Fantastic end. If we could have just ended on that, boom, home run. And you can see, look on his face. He's pleased.
Can I say one more thing on the wildfires before we conclude? And as somebody whose rhetorical flourishes is often undermined in public, I do apologize, Mr. Prime Minister, because that was a great landing you just stuck there. On the wildfire situation in Manitoba, over the past few days, we have seen heroism. We have seen Canadian military flying evacuees through near zero visibility to safety. We've seen law enforcement, first responders, and firefighters staying back to protect entire communities. We've seen volunteers from across the country step up to help. And we've seen evacuees be very, very patient, waiting days to find their way to shelter, transported overnight, and then having to wait even beyond that to get to a hotel room. And so I want to say thank you. And it's in these moments of emergency and in these moments of crisis where you see the true nature of Canadians shine through. And I think that we need to be proud of that and to take a moment to thank folks for stepping up in the way that they have through our state of emergency, through the province of Saskatchewan state of emergency, and others. And hopefully today on the economic level, in the aftermath of the economic crisis that has been presented to us by Mr. Trump, hopefully Canadians have seen your leaders stepping up to work together, and that we see that same spirit of cooperation shining through. Miigwech, merci. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This puts an end to our press conference. C'est ce qui m'a fait à notre conférence de presse. Merci.
All right. So there you go. Like I mentioned, right? Nothing incorrect or offensive, whatnot like that. Maybe not the moment, but then again, all the press is there. So it is, like I said, that one was a matter of taste on that one. But yeah, absolutely. This was not what I expected. It's what I'd hoped for, but it's not what I had expected at all, based on the personalities and what we know to be true of them. So extremely surprising, extremely positive. Um, uh, there's reason for hope. There's reason for hope here that this might actually be something real. Now, on the issue of Premier Wapkanu, he had another moment with regard to the wildfires not too long ago. That was very, very, very good. And he did something that I wish a lot of people would do more often when it comes to media. And you get a loaded or disingenuous question. It's a really, really good moment. And I wish to share it with you here, kids and cubs, so that you can see this is how you do it.
That almost is connected to the start of the fire. Yeah, all the residents say starting at the mine site. So what proof do you have? I guess we're waiting on the investigation still, but generally, would you just say to my colleagues in English about your message to the Flint residents? You know, I used to be a Daily News reporter, so I say this with the utmost of understanding for the pressures that everybody in this room deals with, but I really do think that responsible reporting is very important right now. Journalistic standards and practices book, and just making sure that you're not reporting hearsay and that stuff is double sourced before it's getting shared with the public, I think is very, very important. Not to say that that's a specific commentary on this, but just across the board. We've got a very specific message out here today. Flin Flon, a large community in the north, is on the verge of evacuation, and we're asking for people to listen to the message. We're asking for people to get ready, and we're asking Manitobans in other parts of the province to open your doors if the emergency officials come calling.
All right. I'm not sure how well the volume was on that. From my end, it seemed to be really low. So hopefully it was loud enough to hear. But he was asked a question by a journalist that had a claim in it. And he asked the journalist, it was like, is there any proof of that claim? And asked if in a situation like this, journalists could be sure to double source the claims that they validate by including them in a question before asking them. Because it's a matter of responsible journalism. Wapkanu having been on the journalist side before, saying I'm not saying that this is the case here with this particular question, but yeah, it's probably a good idea in the case of an actual emergency to not include in your question claims or statements made by others that you do not actually know to be true. Because the job of journalism should not be to say, it's a fact that this person said this thing about you. How do you respond? The job of journalists is, this person said something about you and we checked it is factual. How do you respond to this? Right? So, Premier Canoe handling that, again, with grace and tact and poise. So, again, just doing the right things the right way and doing the little things right as well. Very, very important. And just wanted to commend him for that because when I saw that moment too, it was like, oh yeah, this is very important. We should be doing this, and this should be standard operating practice actually. So we need to elevate the journalism game a little bit here. And yes, Premier Canoe called for it in this particular situation, and I am glad that he did. Let's see, what else do we have here? I believe I had something with Salma Makwa, which is, yes, the moment that we were talking about. As I mentioned previously in my comment here, Salma Makwa is the member of a member of the Ontario legislature who, accused, called out Premier Doug Ford for being disingenuous with regard to wanting to have good relationships with the Indigenous community when it comes to Bill 5. So since Kit Limda brought it up in the chat, Let's take a look at this moment. All right. Oop, wait. Here we go. I had it all set up and then it disappeared.
Speaker, First Nations in Ontario do not want Bill 5. I say no to Bill 5. Last week, the government said that they respect First Nations, that they respect treaty rights. Speaker, we know the Premier is telling untruths to First Nations about...
I will ask the member to withdraw.
Not telling the truth. But that's the truth.
I will ask the member to withdraw.
That is the truth. Going.
I will ask the member to withdraw.
Speaker, Premier is telling untruths. That's the truth.
I will warn the member. Please withdraw.
Our rights are not being respected.
Withdraw the comment.
I'm not withdrawing. Speak.
Sam Momakwa, you have been named.
So, yeah. Listen, I understand that there are rules and that there are traditions. But the man had a point, and the man is not lying. I understand it's unparliamentary to suggest or to call another member a liar. But Selma Makwa was not lying when he was calling Doug Ford a liar. I don't know if there is a way to change procedure for that type of thing. But yeah. Not a shining moment. Not a shining moment. And when he stood up and had the eagle feather in his hand, talking about Indigenous people and not supporting Bill 5. For those of you who were around at the time, I'm thinking shades of Elijah Harper in the Manitoba legislature. Not giving his approval so that Manitoba can say that they approve and sanction the Meech Lake Accord. This could be a similar moment here happening. If Doug Ford does not handle this well, he will not be able to bulldoze over this with a, oh, gee, shucks, folks, type thing, because the Indigenous community don't play that. There is going to have to be changes to Bill 5 in some way. If Doug Ford wants to be the Carney sidekick on this, there's just going to have to be. So I don't know how Doug Ford does it while saving face. Now, Doug Ford is someone who's been able to admit, I've messed up. So maybe he'd do it again here. But yeah. Now, of course, when I say Doug Ford's been able to say I messed up, he always says I messed up with a plan in the back to keep on doing it some other way. Which is why he's in trouble. But on this one, he might have to do it, and he might have to genuinely do it. There might have to be. It's just, or else I don't see how the Ring of Fire does get developed in any way, shape, or form. And it's not like he's done much to get it developed in this first 2 terms, even though he's talked about it a lot. So we'll see. There is another thing. 2 little things before we go, kids and cubs, since we're talking about conservatives here. If we're talking about the federal conservatives, Pierre Poilievre, and we talked about Pierre Poilievre and Damien Couric yesterday, and somebody put out a very interesting tweet yesterday, I think it was, goes by Fun Tom, and he says, I confess that I have never heard of Damien Carrick before. He's that recently re-elected Alberta MP who is resigning from Parliament in order to trigger a by-election that they hope will bring the rejected and seatless Pierre Poilievre back into the House via the back door and resuscitate his defunct political career. But after hearing Damien deliver his farewell/resignation speech in the House, I realized why nobody had heard of him. We were not missing much. 3 things became apparent to me as I listened to this mundane little speech. 1. Damien did not really want to resign and was likely pushed out. He makes it clear that he is still deeply interested in politics and will want to return to the House at the earliest opportunity. 2. He was likely paid a lot of money to yield his riding to Poilievre by somebody. 3. The modern Conservative Party is now a cult, with Poilievre and his handlers as cult leaders. They must never take power until they reform and restructure and return to their progressive sane roots. Damien predictably parroted some of Pierre's misleading negativities, and also came within a heartbeat of officially aligning the Conservative Party with the Alberta separatists. Anyway, Liberals must now direct some focus onto that guaranteed Conservative stronghold of Battle River Crowfoot and give Poilievre a rough ride there. You never know what can happen. Politics is a funny thing. And then there were images of Damien Carrick at the convoy supporting it, going around. But of all people, Randy Hillier. Yes, Randy Hillier responded to that with something actually constructive and informative. He says, "This happened to me a few times during my 15 years in politics, Fun Tom. This is how it will play out. 1. Damien will get a job with equal pay either with the party or one of their corporate sponsors. And that's why the terms of the deal need to be known, because if it's with one of the corporate sponsors, which one? Because that seems to me that would be political contribution. And the value of that should probably be recorded somewhere. 2. Damien's stature in the party will be elevated due to his loyalty. 3. At the next election, Poilievre will find a new seat and Damien will have an uncontested nomination to resume his political career. 4. If/when the Conservatives gain government, Damien will be a cabinet minister. 5. Everyone wins in Canadian politics other than the taxpayers. The everyone wins in Canadian politics is not really true. Nobody wins by Pierre Poilievre being back in the House in any way, shape, or form. But yes, the taxpayers do get screwed. That is indeed true. So yeah, Randy Hillier, actually with, this is how it happens. So yeah, be interesting to see where Mr. Carrick does end up. Within the party is usually the easiest one, like this. But if it's with one of the corporate sponsors, well, then there's people will have questions. Let's put it that way. Finally, in Battle River Crowfoot, it would appear that Mr. Poilievre is indeed going to have a little bit of competition. Meet Bonnie Critchley. This was posted in Canadians Against Pierre Poilievre on Facebook. She's a local resident, a fifth-generation service member, a proud Canadian Army veteran with 22 years of service. Bonnie knows what it means to work hard, lead under pressure, and serve with integrity. She's everything Pierre Poilievre isn't. Local? Check. Grounded? Check. Honest? Check. Committed to real people? Check. Battle River Crowfoot. You deserve leadership with values. Vote Bonnie Critchley. Choose integrity. Choose community. It would seem that there is somebody from the riding who does plan to make an independent run for the seat, who's actually known in her community. Now, if there is in addition an Alberta separatist, Alberta Republican Party candidate, and let's say Maxime Bernier also decides to enter the race, well, all of a sudden, that's the possibility of the vote being split 4 ways, and that's before a Liberal, a Green, or an NDP candidate may also enter the race. Pierre is not going to have the easiest ride there at all. Things are getting really interesting. All right, kids and cubs. That's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. Oh my God, can't believe it. This is so exciting. Oh my God. If you would like to make sure you do not miss an episode because you are a kit or a cub on the go, and sometimes you don't have time to sit in front of your computer. You need to take us with you. Well, hey, we like to help. We are portable because we have an ears only version. And if you go to our pod page, which is very generously sponsored by the Ray Girl, thank you so much. And I think sponsoring us for yet another year. So thank you so very much. You can scan this QR code and it will bring you right there. And if you're listening, you go to podpage.com/the True North Eager Beaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. And when you see the subscribe button, if you click it, our podcast comes directly to whatever podcast feed you are using. You don't even have to go looking for us. We come to you because we like to make it simple. We like to help. So thank you so much for subscribing. Now, if you would like to subscribe and help us in another way, well, then you need to surf on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, where we have 3 buttons for you: like, share, and of course, subscribe. If you do watch us on other platforms, we really do encourage you to watch us on the YouTube platform. Yes, because when we get your view, we also get paid. Yes, that part is self-serving, but also because if you're watching live, you get to participate in the live conversation every day with the best damn fam in all of podcasting. Very supportive community and group of people, very informed, very engaged. I learn a lot from them during the show as they chat. I learn a lot from them as they send me information. Great group of people. So if you ever have the opportunity to watch us live, you're going to have some wonderful kids and cubs with whom to interact. And if you are watching on your own time, that's good too. But when you do watch on YouTube, well, we get money for views. So that helps us with our financial situation, especially if you're not able to contribute financially another way. Watching by YouTube does make sure that we get a little something. So we thank you so much for everybody who's doing whatever that they can to help support the show. And if you click on like, share, and subscribe, it helps us with the algorithms. And if you're listening on podcast version, if it has an opportunity to give us a review or stars, that too. The more activity there is on those front, stars, reviews, like, share, subscribe, the higher up you go, and it helps with the algorithm and all that type of stuff, and with charting and all that good stuff. And the more they see us, well, the more people are inclined to maybe click on the icon and listen to us, and that's how we gain new followers. So everything that you can do helps a lot, and we thank you for all of it. Now, if you would like to help us in other ways, for example, by helping us with the costs that we incur to bring this show to you, because we hope that you love this show and that it resonates with you and that you find a lot in it that you find helpful to getting through your democratic day. If you would like to support us, well, then we have our tip jar at our coffee page. We call it the Emergency Hydration Fund here at the Beaver Lodge, because remember, we have to do what you need to do to keep your beaver moist. Yum, 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 yum. And the cup is not empty. All right. If you would like to help us get some cubs, coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. Or you can scan that QR code that's right there in the corner. And if you make a little contribution, according to our lab and our technology here, when we it seems that it makes you 17.3% more interesting at parties. Just like that. Simple contribution. It's been studied in our labs. So there you go. A little contribution makes us happy. Hopefully it makes you happy, and it helps us to bring this show to you. Now, if you're buying Canadian and you want to make your contribution without having to go through the US CE Tech Bros, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is our email address. You can just send us a donation there. Thank you so much for everybody who has. Kit Chris, in particular, sent us something recently. So thank you for that. We really appreciate it. We also have received something recently. I think it is from a Kit Cheryl as well. So thank you. And I believe we received something from Kit Wendy that we had not noticed that we had received until I updated the books yesterday. So a very belated thank you to Kit Wendy for her expression of encouragement. Everything you donate to us does go back into the show. And if you would like to use that email address to write to us to let us know what you think about the show, or to make some suggestions about guests, or submit a question for the Q and answer Q&A question Q&A show. We want to Q and answer. Oh boy. Question and answer show that we would like to have. Well, then that's the email address at which you're going to be able to send it. And that email address is truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. Let us know what you think. Now, if you want to communicate to us via our socials, well, again, at True Eager at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge, also on the Jitter, True North Eager Beaver on Facebook, our original home, or right here on our YouTube page. Leave some comments right down below. We read everything, even though we're not able to respond to everything. And like your donations, everything you say gets filtered back into the show to help make the show better for all of you and a more enjoyable experience. So thank you very much. And to the Kits and Cubs who did bear with me on the live when the mute button went on and I kind of disappeared sonically for a little bit. Thank you so much for staying with the show, knowing that I would come back. Somebody asked during the chat here, sorry, EQ, when I was talking about it, emotional intelligence. So IQ, intelligence, brain intelligence, and the EQ is emotional intelligence. So that's what I was referring there when I was talking about the difference between Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Prime Minister Mark Carney. There. All right, there we go. That's all I got for you here, Kits and Cubs, with regard to that. So, because democracy is something that you do, Kits and Cubs, remember, there's a Quebec Liberal leadership race underway, and the voting, if you are registered for it, that's too late to register now if you're not, but if you are registered, June 9th to the 14th is the voting period. Please do make sure that you go vote, and the results will be announced on the 14th. Remember, there are 3 by-elections going on in Alberta as well. And just wanted to read something because we got a gentle correction from a Kit based on something that I said about those on the first day I mentioned them. I'm not quite sure where the correction is. It's not particularly clear, but I'm going to read it into the record just in case. This was from Kit Melanie. Says, and sorry, it's on the other monitor, so my head's going to turn, so it's going to look very weird here visually. But says, "Good day, Mr. Beaver and Grizzly. I am not being critical, but I wish to offer a small clarification on some information regarding current Alberta political scene. This is regarding the upcoming 3 by-elections that were recently called in Alberta. The riding of Edmonton-Strathcona was originally held by NDP leader Rachel Notley. Notley resigned as an MLA on December 30th, 2024. The riding of Edmonton-Ellerslie was held by NDP MLA Rod Loyola, who resigned this March 2025 when he decided to run federally for the NDP. And then the federal NDP had to disallow him as a candidate, I believe, for certain issues during that campaign. And then Old Dillsbury Three Hills riding was held by UCP Speaker of the House, Nathan Cooper, who resigned when he was offered a position to become the representative for Alberta in Washington, D.C. That might have been the mistake that I made because I don't think I remembered his name or got his name correctly there. A quote from the Edmonton Journal dated May 26, 25. Edmonton Strathcona has been without an MLA since Rachel Notley stepped down effective December 30th, a period of nearly 5 months, one shy of the legislated time limit. Last June 2024, Naheed Nenshi became NDP leader. I was in attendance at this event in Calgary. Nenshi could not run for any by-election because there were no open ridings to be had. First riding to become vacant was Edmonton Strathcona after Notley's resignation. However, Danielle Smith still decided in her, quote, wealth of knowledge to not call any by-elections until it became glowingly clear that she could not longer give excuses and had run out of time. Legislatively, by-elections are to be called within 6 months of a riding seat becoming vacant. Keep up the good work. Your podcast continues to provide me with so much information and excellent points of argument for me, because democracy is something you do. You keep me sane. Regards, Kit Melanie. Kit Melanie, thank you so much for the gentle correction. Absolutely. I read the whole thing in because, like I said, I wasn't exactly sure where it was, but this is all information that is definitely useful for people to have. And I'm glad that you brought it to our attention. So thank you. All right. Let's see. Words of wisdom. Oh, wait a minute. You know what I did? I didn't do today? I didn't introduce the twins, Bert and Ernie. They're here. I didn't do that in the intro. So yeah, I just remembered that. So kits and cubs. Now I have to hold them because if I put them down, they're going to make a whole bunch of noise. Oh, the trouble I got myself into. Jeez. Oh man. Words of wisdom. Yeah. Keep crutching on. Sometimes a crutch is a good thing to have. That's all I'll say. All right. It could be a tough world out there, kids and cubs. So please be kind to and gentle with yourselves. And now, kids and cubs, please, for the audience participation portion of the show, at the count of 3, a little Mr. Beaver, cue the cock, would make me very happy. On 1, 2, 3. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Somebody hit a high C in there. Happy to oblige. Here you go, kids and cubs. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, kids and cubs. Just wanted to give you a specific shout out today for the commentary in the chat. Absolutely fantastic. So much substance today. You guys have really impressed me. I mean, you always impress me, but today in particular, you guys really outdid yourselves. So congratulations, and thank you so much for contributing so substantially to the show. Um, really, hats off and respect. You guys have done amazingly well. A little bit of Canadians that make us proud before we go. For those who have been following the CONCACAF Under 20 Women's Championship, Canada did lose to Mexico yesterday, 2-4, but they still have a place in the playoffs. They will be facing either Costa Rica or USA today. Not today, Costa Rica or USA, based on the result of their match today, which will be the final matches in pool play before we move to playoffs. The AmeriCup Under 16 basketball tournament started, and Canada is involved and had a great debut, winning a very close one, 66-62 against Team Venezuela, which is always a very strong team in America's basketball. So a very good performance by Team Canada there. Always good to encourage the youth. And also, when we're talking about encouraging youth, unfortunately, Nadia Lagaev lost both her singles and doubles matches in the first round of the Junior French Open, and that is the extent of the Canadian participation in that. But good on her for actually making the draw, because it's a tough draw to get included in. So again, these are all Canadians 20 years of age and younger who are all around the world making us proud. And we're going to give them a good way to go, eh? All right, kids and cubs, that's it for me. Wish me good luck. Off to physio. Thank you so much for keeping me company. It distracted me from the cramps in my leg while I've been doing the show, but they are still there. So this physio appointment is going to be very, 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 very welcome. Until then, I'm off. See ya, everybody, and talk to you tomorrow.